Hello, everyone. It is Phil
This is Peter.
and it's Pete, and we are back after a long recess to rank some more franchises. We got a Stanley Kubrick coming up. We got a Stanley Kubrick one coming up, but tonight for hero movies and the greatest, I guess. I would say, and I'm not even a Marvel fan, I would say this is the greatest superhero, whatever, moment in cinematic history. The whole build up to the Infinity War, and I just watched all of them. Pete's probably seen them a million times each.
I did a marathon leading up to Black Widow because during COVID there was like this big gap where we, never mind Marvel movies, we weren't getting movies, period.
Exactly.
So I was like, this is a good time to binge anything that's on pause, and then you'll be all caught up when we get back to it.
Exactly. And I was watching a video about this yesterday about the end of, when did the MCU shift? A lot of people think it's the end of the MCU. It's, they're not as good as they used to be. And the guy made a good point where he said Endgame felt like a finale, not just because it was, but also because of COVID. It's like, it literally just felt like the end. And then you had like this long period of nothing until the show started springing up on Disney Plus, where I think I was satisfied. Like, this is the end of the story. And I think a lot of people felt that way. I think that's a big reason why the MCU hasn't been as hot as it was for this period. And also, Stan Lee died right around that time. So it seemed like it was just the end. That's like.
Yeah, and it was an impossibly high standard to live up to as well.
For sure. So, guys, we're going to get right into it. Of course, we're going to be giving our analysis throughout the ranking here, but there's a lot of movies, so we're going to try to keep it fast. Pete's going to start with his number 22 movie, which is what? I mean, I haven't seen Pete's list. He's kind of seen mine. I'm sure I'm going to piss some people off right at the beginning, but I'm weird with my taste.
Yes. So my number 22 is Spider-Man Homecoming.
Spider-Man Homecoming, the first
Yes.
Spider-Man one.
Yes.
And why'd you rank it so low?
Well, I mean, first of all, there'd already been a pretty high standard set for Spider-Man movies already with the first two Sony movies. Third one, not so much. But yeah, I mean, I understand they were in a bit of a pickle. They didn't want to rehash, Spider-Man's origin story, Uncle Ben, Aunt May, Mary Jane, all that stuff. So they tried to go outside the box and do something new with the character, which is fine, except for the fact that what they did was basically tie him to Tony Stark. Spider-Man's kind of a lone wolf character. He's a kid, so he's figuring a lot of shit out. And, they give him this souped up suit that does all this crazy stuff. The supporting cast in the entire franchise, I didn't really care for. I didn't like the supporting cast in any of the movies. The basic story, homecoming, revolving around the homecoming dance. Spidey's dating the Vulture's daughter, and it comes to a head at the dance. But really, the plot revolves around the Vulture trying to steal shit from the Avengers, which is again tying Spider-Man to Tony Stark and the whole Avengers deal.
Yeah, that was a big issue I had with that movie too. I'll talk a little bit about Spider-Man when we get there. But yeah, not my favorite. They really, I'm the type of guy that doesn't mind when they change from the
That's
source
not
material.
The change I mind. It's the way they change.
Exactly. It's the way you change it. Like, I'm not a stickler for you need to stick to canon and you need to stick to whatever. But I'll get into that. So Spider-Man Homecoming gets the first hit. And I'm going to give the second hit. I think we probably both have pissed some people off because I know Spider-Man's a big hit with the MCU folks. But for me, Doctor Strange, guys, I watched this one in the theater, and I was sitting here with Pete looking at the letterbox to refresh my memory of my thoughts. And I actually had two reviews. I had one that I forgot I had when I first saw it. I gave it 2.5 stars. And I said, I don't know who this guy is. And I still don't give a shit after I finished watching the movie, but it had a lot of pretty colors. And then I watched it for the second time only now when I did the marathon this year, and I gave it 1 star. And my biggest issue with the movie Doctor Strange is that Doctor Strange is not likable. And I get how you can have some likable characters in unlikable characters in movies, but there's got to be something in there, like a little spark of something that makes you kind of root for the person. Like Tony Stark, he's a perfect example. He is still not my favorite of all the characters because he is an asshole, but I love the shit out of him in his own way. At the end of the day, I think I'm more of a Captain America guy than a Iron Man guy. But yeah, there wasn't much that I liked about this movie. It takes forever to get going. And when they finally give you that little shift in Doctor Strange's character where he becomes more humble, because that's the whole purpose of his story arc is that, how he can be a little bit more humble and become a hero. It's like too little too late. I just don't care for him. The multicolor CGI fight at the end, where you have to it keeps repeating the same thing.
Yeah, he basically bores Dormammu to death.
Yeah, and he bored me to death. So it maybe not the best way to beat a villain by boring them, because you might bore your audience. So guys, that's my number 22. Oh shit, Pete, we got a lot of movies to go through. Yeah. So that's 22, Doctor Strange. I know Strange has his fans, but I'm going with that. Go ahead, Peter.
All right. I don't think I even need to consult I do need to consult my list. Yeah, okay. So my number 21 is Iron Man 3. This, I think, basically suffered the curse of the threes the pre-MCU movies have been going through. First two X-Men movies, great. Third one, not so much. First two Spider-Man movies, great. Third one, not so much. Same with the Iron Man movies, man. I love the first two. The third one was like an Iron Man movie without Iron Man, which is really weird. But a large part of the movie is just him getting over his PTSD that he suffered at the end of the Avengers, and hanging out in suburbia with some kid helping him fix his armor.
Who was at the funeral, by the way? I just noticed that when I watched Endgame last night, that little kid is at the funeral. Because I'm looking at, like, I recognize all these faces of these heroes at Tony Stark's funeral. I was like, who the fuck is that kid by himself? But it's that kid. It's that little boy.
But the plot also is a big red herring. They introduced the Mandarin, which he was a cool villain, and he was played by Ben Kingsley. But he's a complete red herring. He's actually been set up he's an actor who's been set up to take a fall guy for the real villain, who's I believe it was Guy Pearce was the head villain.
Yeah, he was under a lot of makeup, right? A lot of prosthetics. Or
no, Ben Kingsley.
Okay.
And the only redeeming thing to come out of that was that the character Ben Kingsley played actually wound up becoming a recurring character in the Marvel Universe, and he's pretty funny. But I don't know. I felt it was kind of a jip in the movie. It's supposed to be a funny twist, but it's not.
But I remember when this movie came out, I got a little bit hyped to watch it because it got a lot of great reviews. Of course, NPR was gushing over it because it was all about the feelings and post-traumatic stress and da-da-da-da-da. And I love those themes. I ranked it a little bit higher than the first time I watched it. I think it was like, no, I fell asleep in the theater watching it, so I didn't even watch it. And I tried watching it again, I fell asleep. So I forced myself to stay awake. And a little bit like Star Trek, the motion picture, like if you force yourself to stay awake, it's not a terrible story. It's just really long and boring.
It's slow.
It's slow, yeah. So I kind of felt that way. But we'll get into Iron Man 3.
I did find the casting of Ben Kingsley as a character called the Mandarin hilarious because he's supposed to be Chinese. And he's like a Middle Eastern Jew, so
he's played. Didn't he play Gandhi?
He played Gandhi too. So if you're gonna get someone to do that, I suppose he's the man.
Yeah, he's got a pass for some reason, but good for him. Moving on, guys. Trying to do these lightning rounds here, at least till we get to the halfway point. Thor: Dark World. I saw this one in the theater too, and was not impressed. I'm looking here at my review of it, and I said, this is not a bad movie, but it's also a whole lot of who cares? I don't. That's who. And basically that, like, I don't remember anything from this movie. I actually had to remember because, again, I just finished Endgame, and when they had to go back to the past, and they were talking about, like, one of the stones is not really a stone. It's a gluey, kind of a blob that went inside that girl, what's her name? Uh,
Jane.
Jane, yeah. I'm thinking. I was gonna say Palpatine's. You know, and I was like, really? I don't remember that. Like, I remember zero from that plot, other than yes, they were on some desert planet and there was some tornado-looking thing at the end. That's all I can remember, and that's all I can say about Thor: Dark World. It's not an offensive movie. It's just like a placeholder. Like, yeah, we
Mhm.
kind of need a movie to go between these two. Like, that's okay. We'll put that there. So I don't know. That's my feelings on Thor: Dark World. I think they were still trying to figure out the character of Thor, what they were going to do with him. For better or worse, they figured it out. I know some, well, I already know Pete's feelings about Ragnarok.
There's like talk of a fifth Thor movie coming out. So of all the characters who've had solo movies, he's the most prolific so far.
Yeah, he's managed to, well, it's the Trinity, right? It's the three that people love. It's Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. They really were like the core of what made this whole Infinity Saga rock. Now it's on to movie number. What is this? This is your 20.
Yeah, it's my 20. My 20 is Thor Ragnarok.
And I was just gonna say yes, for better
Yeah.
for worse. I know you're not a big fan of the.
Yeah, a lot of people love this, but the
Mhm,
thing is, it was Taika Waititi,
mhm.
who's he's known for comedy, and Thor can lends itself to comedy. But the thing is, the story in this one is basically about the end of Asgard.
Uh-huh.
Hela's conquered it. She's like killed Odin. She's fucked Thor up pretty good.
Mhm.
And the only way Thor can beat her is to unleash the fire demon Surtur and destroy Asgard and get out with as many living people as he can. But the whole time, people are cracking jokes and shit, which just seems really out of place. Like his buddies are dying all around him, left and right. They introduced the character of Valkyrie in this one, and I think they also introduced Jeff Goldblum as the Collector. But
Mhm.
their characters were also kind of comedic, and Thor and the Hulk had this buddy thing going on. It
Yeah.
was just a bad mix for the story.
Yeah, I feel you. And that is really a tonal shift that affected like the whole MCU. It's so jokey. Even I keep mentioning Endgame, guys. Sorry, just because I just watched it last night, and there was some stuff that really was weird. Like, there's these scenes where Thor is saying, "I lost my father, and then my mother died, and my sister came back from hell." And like they're, what's his name, the Don Cheeto's character says, what do you think I'm filled with? And he's like, Cheetos. And I was like, okay, it's a kind of a funny joke, but it's like, dude, seriously grieving. Look at him. He's a mess. He's fat,
Yeah.
he's drunk, he's eating himself to death. And it's like, I get it. It's a cute joke. Like, first time you watch it, you're like, ha 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 ha. But then after, you're like, this is like serious shit, man. Like, this is, I think Ragnarok really starts this whole point in the Marvel movies where you can't think too hard about them. If you do, you start to see some wacky shit. Um, my 20 movie, number 20, and I think I'm missing a movie, Peter, but we shall see. I'm trying to figure this out as we talk. Is Avengers Age of Ultron, another movie that I try so hard to like, and I've seen it maybe 3 or 4 times. And there's stuff that I really like about it because it is that. It is way more serious. Like that one, it's
Hmm.
it's not jokey at all. It really, like, it's more dialogue heavy. There's a lot of intrigue between the characters. It's the genesis of what will become Civil War. So there's a lot of good in there. But for some reason, I'm not a big fan of Vision. I think he's a boring character, when he's introduced in that movie. I'm not a big fan of Wanda. I still haven't seen WandaVision, so she's a big part of that movie. And they drag it down for me. I don't like their whole pseudo romance thing, even though I don't think they had it at that point. And there was just, I don't know, there's something flat about it, because when you get an Avengers movie, you kind of expect like a big spectacle, like the first one and the last ones, and Civil War to an extent. And that one just didn't feel spectacle. It felt like they went to some town in Russia and fucked it up pretty good. But it doesn't feel like the level of what an Avengers movie should be. Like, we've all been building up to this. It just felt like, here's a movie that we don't know where it's going, and all of a sudden here's the plot, and it's crazy and blah blah blah. I don't know. Not a bad movie, but I think I know what movie I didn't put on my list here. That's what's missing. Um, so yes, Guardian, Avengers: Age of Ultron is my number 20 movie, and I mean it might be my number 19 because the next movie I'm gonna say it was right around this area here. But go ahead, sir.
All right, my number 19 was Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I think that's what mine is. I just forgot to write it. But go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Captain Marvel. Not a hater. I just wasn't really that into it. It had some positive things, I guess. Um, but I think it was pretty far from the Carol Danvers character that was portrayed in comics for years. She was like in the 70s. She was like the Marvel's answer to Mary Tyler Moore, right? She was introduced around the
Mhm.
same time the Mary Tyler Moore was popular. She was feminist power. She started as a super spy, and then she got Kree DNA and she became Ms. Marvel, but was also still a super spy. So she was
Yeah.
like doubly ass kicking. This whole space opera story they had her involved in was kind of overly convoluted. And then this is a trademark of the MCU. They often have a third act twist
Hmm.
in order to keep it from being too predictable. And in
Yes.
this, it's that her Kree heroes were actually bad guys,
Hmm.
and the Skrulls, who are classic villains in the comics, are actually the victims.
Yeah.
Nick Fury was cool. The story of how he lost his eye was kind of lame, like it got scratched by a cat. That
Yeah.
was pretty shitty. But the time travel aspects were the best part. The space opera stuff, not so much. So, thumbs up for time travel, thumbs down for space opera.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go right into Captain Marvel, guys. It was actually my number 19, and sorry, my number 20 in Age of Ultron was 19. But yeah, I pretty much feel the same way. My thing with Captain Marvel is just that like it felt like nothing. Like why am I watching this? Like I get that they put it right between Infinity War and Endgame to get people to watch it, and that was the whole marketing. It was like you need to watch this movie so that Infinity War makes sense or Endgame makes sense. And you know what? It doesn't. Like you can. I actually I remember not watching Captain Marvel when it came out. I think I saw a cam version of it. I thought it was like okay, but you couldn't really understand a lot of it. Uh, and when I went to watch Endgame and she shows up, like I totally got it. Like it's just this kind of cool character that lives out in space, and she came in to save the day at the last moment. She doesn't even have like a big part. I would say it would have when I did my marathon. I hadn't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp. That movie helped me like appreciate
Yeah.
some parts of Endgame a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Than
The
Captain
post
Marvel.
credit scene, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And really, in what do you call it? Captain Marvel, it just didn't feel like anything was happening, anything important. Um, and I think it had a few of the same issues that Thor, the first Thor, had, where they didn't really know what to do with the character. One minute she was a tough bitch, the next minute she was sweet, and then everybody's telling her, "Oh, you're so emotional, you're so emotional." She doesn't show any emotion the whole fucking movie. She's like robotic.
No, she really didn't, which is kind of surprising because in the comics, her character is actually kind of angry.
Yeah, I was hoping that, but I think what it was is like, what's kind of you can't not talk about MCU with some of the politics that goes
Yeah.
around it, and I think there was this whole thing of like, we don't want to make an angry woman because that's like a stereotype. Like, why don't you smile? Because there's even a line about that. Oh, why don't you smile? Like, there's that biker dude. Oh, give me a little
Right.
smile. So I think it's like they were trying to balance this thing of like, okay, we don't want to make her too feminine because we want to show woman power, but then at the same time, we don't want to make her too tough because she is a girl, and and it's like just let her be herself. You saw Wonder Woman did okay, and she's feminine as shit, like the first Wonder Woman, and she's tough as shit too, and she was just her. So I think Captain Marvel, it was more about like filling in like little dots than
Yeah.
actually the movie. Even like as I'm watching her, I'm like, okay, you got all the characters around her are like you got Samuel Jackson's a black dude, her best friend's a black girl. with a little dot. So it's like you got a white woman with a bunch of, and actually that kind of freaked me out because it's like a black woman with a white woman with a bunch of black people telling her, "Oh my God, you're so amazing, you're so cool, you're so pretty." I'm like, oh, that rubbed me off the wrong way. But I kind of saw what they were going for, which is like, let's make this as multicultural and as female centered as possible without actually just writing a good fucking story. So I feel like I'm shitting on Captain Marvel, but I'm not. It's my fourth least favorite movie.
Yeah.
Or no, my third least favorite movie. But it's not like a bad movie. It's just like,
Yeah, they kind of took the core aspect of the comic book character out of her, though, by having her raised in space. Because her whole thing in the comic books is that, she's well, in the 70s, she was the token feminist.
and I heard that she was not really like, she's never been that liked even in the comics.
Well, they reinvented her several times.
Oh, okay.
She's been a bunch of different characters.
I got you.
Lost her powers and memories. She's been an alcoholic.
Good Lord.
She's been through all kinds of cool shit.
So maybe that's the thing. It's like they don't have a grasp on who this character is. In either case, guys, not a terrible movie, but just one of those, like, if you didn't watch it, like, your life's not going to change. And you can follow the whole saga without that movie. Moving on now. Let's see if I got my numbers right. 22, 21, 20, 19. I guess this is your number.
This would be my 18.
18.
Yes. So my 18 is Thor: Dark World. I liked it more than Phil, but I agree with what he said. It's pretty much a nothing movie.
Mm-hmm.
You'll forget it immediately afterwards. Really great looking movie, actually, though. Like, the special effects were pretty top notch. But the plot involves an old enemy of Asgard named Malekith, who's CGI, and I'm not crazy about most of the Marvel films where the villain is CGI, because what makes a movie is a villain with great character. And a lot of the CGI villains don't really have much character. But I think also why this was a letdown after the first Thor is that the comedy in Thor revolved around this god's interactions with Middle America and trying to convince them of who he is. This one was much more Asgard centered, and they kind of flipped that by having Jane be the fish out of water. But when she's the fish out of water, it's not as funny. Because of course she would be. She's immortal.
Yeah, exactly.
But Thor being the fish out of water, that's hilarious.
No, it's got its moments. Thor: Dark World. That, again, like I said, that's one I saw in the theater, and there were a few moments I'm like, oh my God, is this movie gonna end? But second time watching it, I'm like, okay, you just get through it. Number 18, we are moving right along.
I'm just gonna grab a beer.
Just so you know, folks, beer is being had in this house.
Yeah, if you have glasses,
if you're listening, I do not have glasses, but you might want to wash this and maybe, or look in the sink. There might be some.
Well, yeah, I mean, for you.
I'm drinking this now. Oh, I can have some. I finished. Okay. Just throw out the ice.
Yeah, this shit's not bad.
Okay, so guys, next on the list is one that is probably going to upset some of you out there if I haven't already, or if Pete hasn't already with his Thor Ragnarok. I know that's probably in a lot of people's top 10. It's definitely in my top 10. But Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Okay, and what I did not like about this movie, especially compared to the first one, which I really loved, is if there's like a lack of urgency in this movie. It's like another one of those that, like, you kind of have to wait for, the plot to kind of settle in and for you to make sense of, like, what am I actually watching here? And I just couldn't get into it because it's a lot of interpersonal drama, and I'm not into that in my superhero movies, kind of like what Pete was talking about with Iron Man 3, just not really my thing. And this movie is just, it is the interpersonal drama movie. It's the Guardians kind of starting to get to work together a little bit better. And then you have the whole thing with Quill's dad that is obviously, the dad drama. And also the jokes felt a little bit forced compared to the first movie. The first one felt a little bit more organic, had a little bit more pep to it. Um, and I thought that this one, like the punchlines were written a little bit more at the expense of real character development. It reminds me, Pete, and guys, by the way, we have a lot of movie rankings here. We've done the Star Trek ones. In one,
It's not that cool, but it's
yeah, it's fine.
chunks.
You should have put it in the freezer.
I did.
Oh, okay. And one of the things that there's a criticism with Star Trek 5, which is that like Star Trek 4 is funny because it's funny. But Star Trek 5, it's like the jokes are at the expense of the characters. It's like Scotty hitting his head on the Enterprise. Like Scotty would never do that. He's like the best fucking engineer, So I felt Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was a little bit more like that. Like the first one, the jokes were just funny. And the second one is like, let's make our main characters look stupid. Like over and over and over and over and over again. And I just couldn't get into it. So Guardians of the Galaxy, sorry. I didn't like it that much the first time I saw it. And I did not have much of a change of heart round 2 of it. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. What is your number? I think you're at 17 now.
I'm at 17.
We're moving fast today, guys, and we're gonna do our box office too. So
yeah, so my number 17 is Ant-Man and Wasp. Not a bad movie, but as we saw in Quantumania, which we won't be covering here, the premise, like the humor of it, it really only works once.
Mm-hmm.
They added something to it, of course, by making what's her name, Hope the Wasp, because in the comics it's actually Janet Van Dyne, who is her mom, who's the Wasp. So yeah, in this it's Scott and Janet, who are Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Damn it, Janet.
And yeah, the premise is Hank, played by Michael Douglas, has this device that he's using to try and get his wife back from the quantum realm, but it gets stolen. They play with some interesting ideas here, which is, of course, that PIM particles don't just make you super small; they can make you super big too, and they burn out on it. It's got some laughs, but I think the thing with the first movie was just the concept was funny. Now the concept isn't funny anymore, and they had to come up with some other ways to work around that. But it did have a very nice villain in Walton Goggins of The Shield, and what else was he in that I really liked? He's been in a lot.
He's been in a lot of stuff. He was in the Predator movie where they're out on the Predator planet, which I love. But he's one of those guys that's just reliable. He's been in a lot of stuff. But The Shield for me is his best moment.
But this does have a good payoff where they do eventually get Janet back from the quantum realm. So, and she turns out to be, I think we knew this already though, because she was in a flashback in the first film. She turned out to be Annette Bening. Or is it
it's Michelle Pfeiffer, dude.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Hot as fuck, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Annette Bening's Captain Marvel.
Exactly.
Everyone's in the MCU.
Which I didn't like Annette Bening in that. She felt like she was like kind of phony in her lines. I don't know. I didn't get into Annette Bening in Captain Marvel. Great actress though, otherwise. But Michelle Pfeiffer, I loved in this movie. And I love, what's his name? Paul Rutter, is that his name?
No, I know the guy you're thinking of.
No, Ant-Man.
Michael.
No, Ant-Man. Who plays Ant-Man?
Oh, Paul Rudd. Yeah,
Paul Rudd. And there's a scene, man. I'm Paul Rudd. I'm slowly getting to like him a little bit more. I'm not a huge fan, but I think he sold me in this one thing in this movie, so short, like half a second. It's when Michelle Pfeiffer's character takes over his brain, and he's imitating Michelle Pfeiffer in a way, not imitating, but like she's in him. And he gives this little wink to Hope that it's like this energy, the spirit of Michelle Pfeiffer was in there. Like he did it so perfectly. Have you ever seen Michelle Pfeiffer just give a little wink, like this feminine, cutesy, but she knows what's really going on, like almost like Catwoman, like that sly wink. And I said, this guy's good, man. He just got the whole Michelle Pfeiffer vibe during that scene. But I'll get into it. I'll get into some Ant-Man and the Wasp soon. So, all right, guys, so far we are shitting on a couple movies, they do get a little
We're
bit
getting into
better.
ones that are actually pretty decent.
Yeah, so far, yeah, the ones that I've seen so far, I've mentioned so far, probably would not watch again anytime soon. But if they were on, it's like okay, whatever. Um, my number 17 pick is a movie that's much maligned within the fan base, which is the Hulk, the first one.
Yeah.
The first Incredible Hulk. And there's a lot of good stuff in this movie, even though, I mean,
Yeah, actually, this is the Incredible Hulk.
the Incredible Hulk,
The
yes,
Hulk
it
was
was
the
Ang
Ang Lee
Lee,
movie
which
with
I
Eric
think
Bana.
I like that one more, honestly. But this one's pretty good too. The Incredible Hulk starting difficult to work with Ed Norton, apparently.
Yeah, well, he wrote it.
He wrote this movie?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but well, he's got a co-writing credit
Okay.
because they changed the script and he just fucking lost his shit over it.
Oh.
Refused to promote the movie, argued over every single change.
Well, I wonder who had him be in a real favela to get away from stress.
Yeah.
Like, that to me is so funny because it's like me and Phil, we're here in Brazil. We've been in favelas. So it's one of those things like when you hear people speaking a foreign language when you're a kid, you think they're doing it perfect. Until you meet somebody from Germany and they're like, that's like the worst German ever. Or sometimes even when we were doing the X-Files marathon, there was this part where they were speaking Portuguese from Brazil. We're like, that's not Portuguese from Brazil. So it's something that you wouldn't know unless you actually lived in a favela. It is the most stressful place you can be in.
Yeah, I lived in a favela.
Yeah, I'm always in the mud. I got family from favelas. So I'm thinking, I decided to look at it a different way. Maybe being in the most stressful place in the world is a way to know how to control your stress. Like if you're going to have to learn how to control your anger, go to like the center, like go in the middle of the beehive and just be like, yes, if I can handle being in the middle of this beehive, I can handle anything. But I just always crack up with that beginning.
Yeah, I think the idea behind that was just this stereotype that Americans have of Brazil being the place where you go to escape, to disappear off the face of the earth.
And white guy savior syndrome, because he's like the white guy in the favela who's the doctor who's helping all the poor kids and all that bullshit. Right. So there's a lot of that going on too. But I just always crack up. I like how they give him the old school glowing eye Hulk transformation.
Yeah.
The theme music and Lou Ferrigno's in there, so total respect. Yeah. I felt it was a little too close to Iron Man with the weaponized version of the hero, plus the military angle, or the, so the bad guy ends up being like just like another form of the Hulk, kind of like Iron Man 1 was. Like,
yeah, but that's exactly what he was in the comic books.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it. But there's other, I don't know, it just felt too similar. Like they came out very close to each other, Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, and they both kind of have similar beats. It's like the military wants to use this in this power. The military wanted to use Iron Man's suit, and then they created a different version of the Hulk, and then they created a different version of the Iron Man, and then both of them had to fight each other. It's like basically the same beats, story beats. Now I put here in my notes that okay, so it felt too close to Iron Man because of the weaponized version. Also, they both fight versions of themselves, and they have supportive, smart girlfriends. The weak link in this movie, unfortunately for me, is Norton. He's just not fun, and he's not charismatic like Downey Jr., obviously.
Well, he's not supposed to be fun, though.
But there's got to be a charisma, man. Remember from the show back in the 70s, David, it was David Banner. They changed his name.
Phil Bixby, because they said Bruce sounded too gay. So they changed it to the second most common name among gay men, which makes no sense.
Yeah, that's weird. But in either case, like he's a downer type character. It's actually what I don't like about the new version of the Hulk and Banner is he's all giddy and happy-go-lucky. It's like, no, he's a depressing type of character. But there's still got to be a charisma in there, like something to draw you in. There's a difference between quiet, mysterious guy sitting in the corner that you're like, oh, shit, I want to see what this dude's about. And just that dude that's by himself in the corner, that's like, that dude looks like an asshole, and that's why he's in the corner, because nobody likes him. Norton is more on the second one. But it's not this movie's not that bad, okay? It's kind of buried in the MCU because, Ed Norton left the MCU, blah, blah, blah. and they totally retconned the Hulk.
And I think also they didn't know what to do with the Hulk as a solo character beyond that.
I
Because
think.
there's this huge dead end where the scientist he goes to for help has this weird thing going on where
Mhm.
it looks like he's going to be the Hulk's second big villain, the leader, because his
Mhm.
head starts growing and shit. And
Mhm.
that got dropped.
The Hulk's a difficult character to write for, because when he doesn't talk, I mean now he does, but traditionally he doesn't talk. So basically, what can you do with him? Yes, it works for the comics. It works for like a 1 hour TV show where he's only going to be the Hulk for 5 minutes at the end. But to carry a 2 hour movie,
Yeah, he works better playing off of other characters.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, even though he's one of my favorites, I love the Hulk, but I don't think he's a great character that translates to the screen as well as he does in comics and things like that. All right, moving ahead, you are at number 16.
I'm at number 16, and my number 16 is Ant Man, which I thought it was kind of brilliant that because they were stuck for characters. They didn't have the rights to the Fantastic Four, the
Mhm.
X Men, they didn't have Spider Man yet. So they're like, fuck it, we're going to do Ant Man, and we're going to get Edgar Wright to direct it. And Edgar Wright's a really funny writer and director. He didn't wind up directing it because they changed his script too much and he was
Oh,
being
really?
micromanaged.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did Scott Pilgrim versus the World. He
Mhm.
did Shaun of the Dead. So you know he's going to bring a sense of humor to it.
Mhm.
And boy, did he ever. It's such a fun, silly movie. I was kind of wondering what they were going to do with it because he was actually one of the first Marvel characters, but it was Hank Pym, the character played by Michael Douglas.
Mhm.
And what they did was they went with both of them. They had Rudd play Scott Lang, who has to steal the technology, and Michael Douglas is the old Ant Man, so he's got this whole past before the MCU. And like a lot of the MCU movies, the plot basically revolves around a fight for tech,
Yes.
and Lang trying to not be such a loser. And they really brought that relationship with his daughter into it because that's like the one thing that defines Scott,
I love that.
yeah, Scott's
Yes.
character in the comic books
Mhm.
is everything he does for his little girl.
Yeah, she's a cutie. I like that. I'll get into Ant Man because that's a movie that I absolutely hated when I saw it in the theater, and I had a big change of heart with Ant Man. It went really up on my list. It probably would have been like down with Doctor Strange if I had done this list 5 years
Yeah,
ago.
and it was really self-aware too. Just
Mm-hmm.
like the whole idea of like what a lame idea for a superhero. Like you can
Yes,
make yourself small and talk to ants, but they made it work, man.
they
And the
did.
visuals looked really good.
I dug it. I definitely dug it. And I saw this one in the theater. It wasn't like because I saw some cam version, I didn't get it. It was like I saw it in the theater. I was like, what the fuck is this?
And it had a good villain too, in Corey Stoll, who played Yellow Jacket. He's the evil guy
Yes,
trying to get the technology, and
I
he
dug
does
it.
get it. So they have the big shrinking and growing fights, and they can make other things shrink and grow too, which made for some really cool effects.
Cool. Yeah, those little things that they throw, those little magnet things that they throw. All right, number 16, ladies and gentlemen, and third genders. Um, Iron Man 2. I am so sorry, people that love this movie. I know this is like the big one that I think people like this movie more than the first one. Um, Rooney makes for a great villain. I mean, Rooney is just Rooney. Like he just, oh, does he do drugs anymore? I don't want to say he's coked out, but
Rooney who?
Rooney. What's his
The
name?
villain in this was Sam Rockwell.
Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Oh,
I think you might be thinking of Mickey Rourke, who was like
Mickey
the
Rourke.
secondary
Yes,
villain.
I said Rooney. I meant Mickey Rourke. Sorry, guys, misspoke. Mickey Rourke, who is, he just looks like he's like he's speaking of what's in his blood. Seems like it's a lot of drugs, but it's for the better, at least for me as someone watching a movie, because he just lights up the screen. So I like almost everything that he's in. But I think what took me out of this movie, again, you guys are gonna have a theme here, and you kind of get my taste a little bit. I'm not into this interpersonal shit, and this whole movie was like Tony going through his woes. Uh, and I wasn't as invested in this as the writers wanted me to be. Uh, Also, I kind of felt like this movie was a retread of the first one with the plot line involving someone else trying to get the same Tony tag. But Pete just mentioned that. That's like the plot of every Marvel movie. In the Iron Man versus the Iron something big bad finale fight, the Black Widow reveal is the best part of the movie. I really liked that she was in there. I had forgotten that she was introduced in this film as a major character. But yeah, just it's totally personal opinion. It's just I'm not into like the heavy drama of like, oh, I'm depressed. I'm like, you're a fucking billionaire and you can fly to the sky and shoot things out of your fucking hands. Like, get over it.
Yeah, but he's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I'll touch on that when we get to my turn.
Oh yeah. He was going through his shit, but not a terrible movie. Just not my style very much. Go ahead, Mr. Pete.
Yeah, my number 15 is The Incredible Hulk, which we touched on earlier. Big challenge, really, considering that Ang Lee's Hulk movie had just come out a few years earlier. And I liked that they went totally different. They skipped the origin story. They basically reduced it to the opening credits and just explained it as the movie went along. So it's like, no, we're not making that movie again. And I think the problem that most live action Hulk adaptations have suffered from is that they've tried to make it more like a more relatable science fiction story, like Ang Lee's movie. But it's not the Hulk from the comics. The Hulk is a superhero comic. And they brought that here. This was a total superhero movie. You got the Hulk, you got his arch enemy, the Abomination, and they're going to duke it out and they're going to smash shit. So I think that if you're a fan of the Hulk comics, this was the Hulk done right.
Yeah.
And I also have to say another thing on the Brazil aspect. Not only is Brazil a terrible place to go to get away from stress, but Ed Norton also goes into a Brazilian post office to mail a package, and he comes out in like 5 minutes. That dude's gonna be in there for like 3 hours. I guarantee it.
And possibly that's where he would turn into the Hulk. Yes. I've had Hulk moments inside of not post offices but banks here, and it's like I just start screaming and yelling in English, because when I get really mad, it just comes out in English. Like when I get sort of mad, I'll curse out in Portuguese, and then like, motherfucker. Anyway, yeah. Not all of Brazil is like that, guys. Brazil's huge, and there are some very peaceful places, but it's like not where Ed Norton was.
Yeah, and also banks and post offices are pretty much universal.
Exactly.
Bureaucracy.
Yes. 15. We're gonna stick with Iron Man here. Iron Man 3 is my number 15 movie. Guys, I wrote down a little tidbit of dialogue here. Tony Stark comes home and he says, so who's home? And then the little boy that's over there, Harley, says, well, my mom's already left for dinner and dad went to 7-Eleven to get scratches. I guess he won because that was 6 years ago. And then Tony Stark says, which happens? Dads leave? No need to be a pussy about it. Here's what I need. And that little bit of dialogue kind of sums up the snark of Iron Man 3. I tried watching it twice, like I said, and I fell asleep twice. But then I forced myself to watch it this time, and it's not a bad movie at all. It focuses on Tony's psychological problems, kind of like in Iron Man 2. Just that I think it invested 100% in it. And I think it's what I appreciated a little bit more in this movie than I did in Iron Man 2, because that one was like, action scene, da-da-da, and then Tony Stark being depressed. Action scene, da-da-da, Tony Stark being depressed. This one was like Tony Stark being depressed. And like, how is he going to get through this? And I think it worked marvelously in some scenes, and it bored me in others. But I respected it a little bit more that it said, this is the movie that we want to make about just this man's journey without his tech. Like, who is Tony Stark, the man? And it's the one that really turned me around a little bit. Because like I've said, I'm not a huge Tony Stark fan at all. But I think this is the movie that I got to see a little bit more of his humanity and like what he was really going through with, after the attacks in New York and all that jazz. So, I dug it. I can actually recall quite well the part that I fell asleep in. It's once the true identity of the Mandarin is revealed. It's super dumb.
Yeah.
It's super dumb. The movie loses a lot of steam for me once that bit is over, and then it devolves into the usual CGI fest finale. So I'm in agreement with Pete. Although Pete's much more of a Marvel fan than I am, I think I've read 3, maybe 4 Marvel comics in my life. I'm just not a Marvel fan. I prefer DC. So I go into these movies totally fresh. Like I'm the audience member that they're trying to capture that's like that has not watched comic books. So they need to make this movie for the comic book fans, for the mid-range people, and then the ones that just in passing know who Iron Man is, but have never read any of his stuff. That's me. So I don't mind it if they like go away from canon or they rewrite some stuff because I don't know the source material. And so I think this movie was kind of like that. It just was like I don't know who the Mandarin was. If he, that he was, he's an actual villain and blah blah blah. So I didn't get caught up with that, but it was still boring. Like it was like why? Why would they do that? Why would they build up this guy for 3/4 of the movie,
Yeah.
and then he's nothing, and then there wasn't even like a bigger, badder villain behind him. I mean, they tried to make the other dude bigger and badder, but
Yeah,
it
but
really
you already
wasn't.
knew he was involved in it somehow anyway, because he's in the opening scene.
Exactly. So I don't know. The villain thing here is what messed this movie up. I liked the psychological angle. It reminds me of something Pete always says. An interesting Halloween movie would just be Mike Myers and Strode just sitting in the room trying to hash it out. You probably could, you couldn't carry that for like 2 hours, but like a 30-minute, 40-minute movie like that would be cool. I think that's what I like the 40 to 30 minutes of real digging down without the stupid little jokes of this movie. I think are really great, and the rest is just like, whatever. All right, that's my take on Iron Man 3. Moving on to Pete's number
14?
14.
Yes. That would be the one that started it all. The original John Favreau Iron Man. Perfect way to kick off the franchise, I think, because of the characters that they actually could make a movie with. I think he was the one that probably had the most appeal. But he was a challenging character to make a movie out of because his character's backstory is tied to the Vietnam War and everything. So they really had to think about how are we going to update that for a contemporary audience. But they told basically the same story, except they updated it to Afghanistan. It revolves around his crisis of conscience as a weapons manufacturer. And then they introduced the character of Obadiah Stane, who's a character from much later in Iron Man comics. Then he's a rival industrialist. In this one, he's like Tony's partner, essentially. And he's not down with not selling weapons. So his whole aim is okay, I'm going to get rid of Tony, take what he's got, and continue selling weapons to terrorists.
Great villain.
Yeah. And they had Jeff Bridges as Stain, which is really good.
He was awesome. He's great.
But I like the simplicity of it. They were about to make a popcorn movie that could introduce this character really well.
Yeah, to me, like somebody, like I said, I've never read an Iron Man comic in my life, and I get it. Like it was great.
Yeah, and they had Downey, of course, is perfectly cast. He knows the character inside and out. The look of the movie was great. Like this is one of those movies they couldn't have made an Iron Man movie like this in the 80s. It would have looked like shit. But you know, when he's in the armor and he's doing the action shit on screen, it's like, okay, that's exactly when, you know, in my mind's eye, that's what I think Iron Man in action would look like. So it was basically just a pitch for the character and the franchise. They kept it simple and it worked.
I agree 100% with that. And I'll get into Iron Man in a little bit. My number 14 movie is Spider-Man Homecoming. And I remember when I first saw this movie, I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it very much. And mostly it's because I can't get behind Tom Holland's over infantilized depiction of Spider-Man. It's just not. Speaking, I just said that I've never read Marvel Comics. Spider-Man, yes. I mean, I think that's one of the universal crossovers. So yes, I've read plenty of Spider-Man comics and the Hulk and a couple X-Men. But he was never like this. Like he's like I work with teenagers, guys. I've worked with teenagers for at least 8 years here in Sao Paulo, and I work in a high school. I've never heard a teenager talk like that with that overexcited. Hey, Mr. Stark, Mr. Stark. It's so fucking annoying. I don't know any 14-year-old that talks or acts like that. I didn't. I know Pete probably didn't. Pete's got a kid. I doubt his kid acts like that. And I don't know where they got this idea of what this teenager's supposed to be like, even though it's like Generation Y. But I work with kids from this era. They don't talk like this. And it's just really, really, really bad. And of course, putting Tony Stark in there as like dad, it's got this weird kind of like, oh, I hate to say this, but it's got this weird gay vibe, dude. Like it's too much. It's like daddy son type, weird porno thing going on. Cause he's riding Tony's cock like for real, man. And he's even like on Endgame, he's like when Tony's dying, he's like, Mr. Stark? Like his name is fucking Tony. How long have you known him? And you still have this like vision of Mr. Stark. And then finally the last thing he says, like, Tony? It's like, wake up, kid. So I don't get into that at all. I think Michael Keaton saves the movie by being kind of a ground level, kind of relatable villain. I like the part where he drives Peter Parker to the prom and he slowly starts to realize who Parker is. That shit is mesmerizing. And it made me think while he was doing that Keaton would have made a great Joker too. Because he goes from regular to sinister and like so subtly, but then when he's there, it's all in his eyes. So definitely nothing bad to say about Michael Keaton, even though the character itself wasn't that interesting, but he played it really well. And there's not much to be mesmerized by. The boat being cut in half is like the big moment of the movie. It kind of felt like a Tobey Maguire, like remember when Tobey Maguire held the metro train?
Yeah.
The only thing is, like, that makes sense. Like here, I couldn't make, like, it took me out of the movie. I'm like, this boat has just been cut in half. How is it not sinking? Like, I don't care how many web shooters you got. Water's going to come in that thing. Like, your web shooters are not, like, they're not going to create, like, a concrete kind of, like Iron Man has those little things that he sprays out that creates, like, a solid surface. So, Homecoming is for the tweens. God bless Marvel for it, but it's just not my thing. Not my thing at all. The new Spider-Man. Moving ahead.
Okay.
Let's go to your number 13.
Yeah, my number 13 is Doctor Strange, which I think captured everything that, like, I'm not a fan of the comics particularly, but if you are, like, this captures the whole deal. It captures Strange's ego, his journey to overcome it. But what I like about Strange too is that he never completely overcomes it, because now he's an all-powerful sorcerer that's not going to make anyone more humble.
Exactly.
But the thing about Doctor Strange is that, especially in the 70s, the writers at Marvel, they were all doing acid. And they were like, okay, man, like, Doctor Strange is a character we can do anything with. He's going to go to the dimension of the butt people, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they did stuff like that in this movie. It's like, okay, like, he's magic now. What can he do?
Exactly. It's cool. It's cool. I like that part about it.
Yeah, and they used the special effects really well. I like the big fight with Dormammu because I think it's a really clever way to beat somebody. The one thing I didn't like, though, was the casting of Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One, especially for the reasons they did it. When you think of all the times that Marvel has altered, like, the race or gender of a character, this is like the most nonsensical, because the Ancient One is supposed to be a Tibetan mystic.
Yeah, it's an old Chinese guy, right? Or Tibetan.
Tibetan, yeah, that's the thing. And they didn't want China to ban it.
Oh, I didn't know that backstory.
Yeah.
Let me see what he looks like in real life here. Doctor Strange comics. Does he look anything like Swin?
No.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, they did a job on him. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, they need that Chinese money, man. What can you do? It's a business.
Yeah, but they wound up banning Marvel anyway, I think.
Yeah, because they don't like anything with witchcraft either. So I don't think Doctor Strange would have played, because I forgot which big movie it was that got banned in China because it had witchcraft craft or something related to.
Maybe the Doctor Strange one.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably was Doctor
The
Strange.
second Doctor Strange.
Yeah, and I think I like the second Doctor Strange because they leaned in heavy on the acid trip, like from the start of the movie onward.
Yeah.
And this movie just took forever to just like, this guy's an asshole, this guy's an asshole, this guy's an asshole. Oh look, he's still an asshole. Oh, he could, and then finally, you kind of get a little bit more of his all the cool stuff. Let me see, Marvel movies banned in China. Let me see which ones got banned and for what reason. The Marvel titles that were blocked were Black Widow, Spider-Man No Way Home, Eternal,
So
Shang-Chi,
basically everything after Avengers.
Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness Thor. Yeah, wow. I wonder why they did all that. But anyway, but those movies were just never. Why were they? Chinese regulators never officially explained why the movies were banned. This left many to speculate that the trade war tensions between. Oh, so blame it on Trump. Let me see. There's also political transgressions of the Oscar-winning Chinese director Chloe Zhao. Oh, that I know. Also, there were some brief mentions of LGBTQ moments and mentions of same-sex relationships in Doctor Strange and Thor: Love and Thunder. So China has changed its mind, but it's tough to get shit going over there. My number 13 movie is Captain America: Civil War, another one that I saw in the theater. I was actually surprised by how many of these I saw in the theater, man. I was
more than me, probably.
I was like really digging this whole Infinity Saga. Unfortunately, couldn't get into Civil War. I even tried to read the comic afterwards to see if the comic was better, but I got through like 4 issues and then I put it down. But what I don't like about this movie is just that it feels like a jumbled mess of action scenes, like exactly the same feeling I had in the theater. I had it this year while watching it. It's just like my eyes just glazed over. It's just action scene here, action, and there didn't seem to be any like real moment of like, let's just settle down and figure out what the hell we're fighting for and what's going on until you get to the end and then you figure it out. But until you get there, it felt like a video game. And also one thing that they did do in this movie that I haven't seen in any other Marvel movies, at least not that much, is the shaky cam, to like make you feel like you're in the action. And it takes me out of the action. I don't like that shaky cam stuff. Really, the final 30 minutes are the real reason why this movie rocks. And those last 30 minutes are like top tier Marvel. When Tony finds out that Cap knew about his parents' murder and they fight, man, that is epic. Everything leading up to that, if somebody put a gun to my head and said, explain the plot of Captain America: Civil War, I'd be like, they just got mad at each other. They just got pissed off at each other. There was an explosion at the beginning and then they all got mad at each other. I wouldn't be able to tell you. And I've seen this movie twice already, all the way through, and probably bits and pieces in the last, however many years. So I don't know, just not a fan of Civil War at all. Moving ahead, Mister, to your number 12.
Yeah, my 12 is Iron Man 2. And actually,
cool.
I'm still doing it, reread the Iron Man comics. And I think this is the best one in terms of blending all the best comic book stories into one.
Mm-hmm.
You have Tony's drinking problem is addressed, not in a very serious way, because like in the comics, it's like a major part of it that goes on for years. But at least they do show that like he's an alcoholic and he's a narcissist and he's going to get over one of them, or he's going to be dead. They made Rhodes a much bigger character. When he was played by Terrence Howard in Iron Man, he was just like his...
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, he was his connection in the military. But in this one, he's like his best friend and the guy who takes him aside and is like, dude, you got to clean your shit up or I'm going to fucking, I'm going to teach you a lesson.
Yeah.
So I like that. Of course, it introduces Nick Fury and the Black Widow, which is also really cool. The plot, again, is someone trying to steal Tony's tech. I think the major mistake they made, because one of the stories that they adapted was one where Justin Hammer, who's played by Sam Rockwell in this movie, tries to basically put Tony out of business so he can
Hmm.
get his shit. But Justin Hammer, he's like an old British dude. He's really sinister. Sam Rockwell is not that. Like, I don't know how they did not cast Christopher Lee as Justin Hammer. Like, he would have been such an amazing villain because he was still alive at the time because he lived forever.
Hmm.
So yeah, he would have been an amazing Justin Hammer. But no, I like the fact that it incorporated so many different aspects of Iron Man in a way that actually worked. And I think this is a case of a sequel being better than the original. A lot of people don't think of it that way because it's a franchise like James Bond. So you don't think of, oh, From Russia with Love is better than Doctor No. But no, I think this is a sequel that was better than the original.
You know what? I don't disagree with that, even though I rank the original higher. I think as far as like the look of the movie, the what's the word I'm looking for? The confidence of the movie, like everything just kind of clicked a little bit better. I just couldn't get into what they were getting into, as far as the whole psychological side of Tony Stark. But I agree, as far as the movie itself, for me it feels like the first Infinity War saga movie where like even the style, the jokes, the the pacing was just there. Like first Iron Man is just a solid movie, but it feels like it could have just been a one off.
Yeah, it's an introduction
Mhm.
basically, and this movie is like, okay, now we've introduced what Iron Man's all about. Now we're going to take you to where like the stories in the comic books revolve around, which is
Yeah.
basically Cold War stuff during the 60s and 70s, and
Uh-huh.
then after that, industrial espionage and geopolitics.
Yep. Yeah. Definitely. I dig that part of it. Guys, next movie on my list is Ant-Man and the Wasp, which Peter was just talking about. Sorry, guys, I'm getting lost here on my screen. Okay, so Ant-Man and the Wasp, I just saw it like what, last night or the night before, and I dug it. I just think it starts lagging in the middle. It gets like really slow. I like the first 30, 40 minutes of it, but once they start getting into because there's the villain. What's the villain? The black dude in there. Forgot who plays the villain. Jeffrey, is it? It's not Jeffrey Wright. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Who plays that? Lawrence Fishburne. Okay, he's in there. Okay. Yeah, there's this whole thing with that lady that's phasing in and out,
Mm-hmm.
and then because she got hit with some quantum radiation. I don't know. All I do know is that I got bored with it halfway through. Lawrence Fishburne seemed like he was being set up to be like a really good villain. That's a terrible picture of Michael Douglas. Poor guy. Um, he looks like a fucking looks like a corpse. Anyway, the and then it was like such a simple solution. Like they could have just talked it out. It's like, bitch, we need to do this now. We're gonna get my wife. I'll come back and she'll protect you. You don't gotta go around killing it. Like I didn't get why they couldn't just talk it out, even though the movie tried to explain it. That Lawrence Fishburne and Hank Pym, Dr. Bill Foster and Hank Pym had a fallout. But it's like you were in the same room together, you know, you could have tried to explain that. Look, there's this bitch that's trying to kill us, and I actually know who this bitch is. And why don't we figure out a way that we can both be happy? Because he got the technology, I got the necessity, and also some of the knowledge. I don't know. Couldn't get into it. After a while, I kind of fell asleep. Well, kind of lost my interest. But overall, cool movie. Love to see Michelle Pfeiffer as always. Michael Douglas is pretty great in it. Rudd, great dad, man. He's probably my favorite MCU dad of them all. And that's about it. I don't got much to say about Ant-Man and the Wasp, other than I liked it more than I thought I would because I don't care that much for the Ant-Man character, and that's the one that you really should watch if you really want to have a little bit more impact when you're watching Infinity War, because a lot of the stuff that goes on there relates to it as far as how this time travel, quote unquote, works.
Endgame. Endgame.
Endgame, yeah, sorry. Let's move ahead then to number 11.
Number 11 for me is Black Panther. Yeah, yeah. So this is the movie that really introduces us to concepts like Wakanda, vibranium.
Black people.
Not really the first introduction to
I'm
black
joking.
people in the MCU.
Well, black people in mass. But I'm messing.
Yes, yes, black majority cast. Actually. But yeah, this one, there's not a lot bad you can say about it. It's a solid adventure film. If there's a thing I didn't like about this, it's again from a comic fan perspective, it's that they made the Black Panther too super. He's just a regular dude in the comics, and in this, like his suit can do all this wacky shit, which isn't really what he was about, and that's what made him cool. He was introduced in the Fantastic Four comic where he beats the Fantastic Four single-handedly with no powers. Here, he's pretty badass. But yeah, it's this classic story of like someone trying to become a leader and someone with a grudge trying to take that from him. And they have a connection, and him trying to identify with the grudge. Basically, Killmonger's just got a big chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And what he wants Wakanda's vibranium.
Tech! He wants the tech!
Yeah, yeah. To wage war on all other nations except for Wakanda. Basically, to loosely translated, he wants to kill all the white people. They don't come out and say it, but that's what's implied.
Basically, yeah.
But that's a flaw in the plot point too, because there's nothing good that can possibly come of that. On some level, he's got to know it. So the only thing.
No, he's a villain, man. He doesn't know it. It's just like Thanos.
No,
like,
maybe he's a nihilist, like Thanos. Like he just wants to see the world burn.
I feel that 100%. That's why I like him as a bad guy so much. Yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of action scenes, this had some really top-notch ones. Like, I don't know which Asian city they go to. I think it's Seoul, but there's like a high-speed car chase.
Oh yeah,
it's like running around on top of cars and shit.
Yeah, when they go to that little like underground casino bar, whatever it is. Yeah,
that was and the final Wakanda Forever fight. I mean, that's like one of the best moments in the franchise.
Yes. No, I love it. I love it. Oh, we'll get into Black Panther a little bit later. I'll get into it. But I agree with most of your points there, Dom. For me, my number 11 is Thor, the first Thor, directed by the great Kenneth Branagh. And he brought a lot of that Shakespearean flavor to it, which I love. I love Kenneth Branagh's direction because it's so economical. He just like gets through what he puts on the screen, what you got to see, get from point A to point B, and let's go home. Which is a charming part of these first movies when I was doing the rewatch, how simple they were. And I mean, you can't not do it. You know, once your franchise starts growing, it's impossible to like keep it streamlined. You're building universes here and it'll get bloated. It's just natural. It's just what happens. I can't think of one franchise that's managed to not like overdo itself to try to be new and have more intrigue and different locations. It happens, right? But this is like the start. This is where I think Thor is probably, again, I've never read Thor comics. I've seen like cartoons where Thor was in there, and it seems closer to what the original, depiction of Thor is, very serious, stoic, blah, blah, blah. And I get that he's still sort of like that, but it's way more like, for jokes than in this movie, which I appreciate. I appreciate this version of Thor. He's very serious, fish out of water story again, which is kind of cute. And only bad thing I gotta say about this movie is that it feels like a TV movie, like not a TV movie, but like just a notch above, because nothing really incredible happens. It's just a cute, well-made introduction story that gets done what it needs to get done and introduces us to what will become, part of the great Trinity. But yeah, that's about it. Not much more about that movie that I gotta say. Um, Before you get to your number 10, Pete, let's, as we always do, let's run down the list. We're going to do it really quick, guys, because I couldn't find a list with just the Infinity War movies. So we're just going to tell you which movies made the most. And for whatever, and guys, this is just domestic. Oh, no, I do have the worldwide box office. Well, as they say, Marvel's having some problems, not just Marvel, movies in general. So the Marvels that came out this year made like nothing. Worldwide box office, 161 million as of whenever this article was written, which was on November 21st, 2023. So maybe it's made a couple hundred more, but doubt it. And then we got The Incredible Hulk, not a big movie there, 264 million. And then we got Captain America, the first Avenger. This is when stuff started cooking, yeah? 370 million for that one. Black Widow, 379, not bad during COVID. Okay. Eternals actually made a little bit of money, made more than I thought, 402 million. Weird movie. I think that movie should have been a series. Yeah, I like parts of it. I love Shang-Chi though. That was cool. 432. The Shang-Chi is what got me into watching the newer movies because I really like that. There we go. Thor, $449 million. So these are the movies that are starting to get big bucks. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, that came out this year with no more Jonathan Majors, 476 million. Original Ant-Man made a bit more, 519. Iron Man 1, 585 million. These are worldwide figures, not adjusted for inflation. Ant-Man and the Wasp made $622 million. Iron Man 2, 623. Man, Thor Dark World made this much money? 644. I thought that was kind of like a flop. Well, not a flop, but like, not that many people would see it. But I think at that time, like, Marvel could do no wrong. They could have thrown trash out there and people would have watched it because it's like watching an episode of your favorite show. Like, you can't miss this episode. It may not be the best, but there's going to be one or two things in there that are going to make you go, ooh, can't wait for the next one. Doctor Strange in 2016 made $677.8 million. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, one of my favorites, $714 million. Then we got Thor, Love and Thunder that came out last year, made buck, $760 during the pandemic. So that's a big number for a pandemic movie. Guardians of the Galaxy, surprise hit there, $773 million. And then we got Volume 3 that came out this past year, made more, $845. I enjoyed it. Did you like Guardians 3?
Yeah.
I really loved it. Ragnarok, $855 million. That was a big hit. Wakanda Forever was okay, $859 million. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I didn't like so much, $863 million. And then we got Spider-Man Homecoming, the first one, $880 million. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness nearly made $1 billion, $955. But I really dug that movie. That was the guy, the horror director, right?
Sam Raimi.
Yeah, there was some cool horror stuff in that movie. Mm-hmm. Captain Marvel.
Broke $1 billion.
Broke $1 billion, for sure. Off the strength, I think, of just being between those two movies. Because there's no way this movie would have made $1 billion otherwise. It would have made what the second one. Although I hear people say that it's not that bad. The second one is better.
Yeah, I tried to watch it, but it was a cam, so it didn't look terrible. But I can't do cams.
Spider-Man: Far From Home. Now the only redeeming quality of Spider-Man is this dude's ass. Good lord. Sorry guys, I'm looking at a picture of Tom Holland's butt here. Worldwide box office 1.13 billion. This is okay. I couldn't really get into this movie, but that's because of Spider-Man. Captain America Civil War, one of my favorites, 1.16. Now, guys, these are the top 10. They're all making over $1 billion here. Iron Man 3 made that much money? Fucking Lord. Off of a $200 million budget, it made $1.2 million. That's crazy. Black Panther, also huge hit, 1.3. These costs are really down. Yeah, $200 million. Now it seems like these movies feel like they're more expensive these days.
Yeah.
To make. Age of Ultron made $1.4 billion. The Avengers, the first one, made 1.52 million dollars. No Way Home, Spider-Man, which was the big one. That was the was that was the one with the three Spider-Mans? Oh yeah, that was huge. 1.92 billion. That was huge. And of course, Avengers Infinity War made 2.5 billion. And Endgame, $2.8 billion. And I very much doubt we're going to be seeing numbers like that again coming out of Marvel. It's a possibility, but I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, back to our list. It is now time for the top 10, guys. These are the movies that we love to death, maybe, or the ones we enjoy the most. So let's go.
All right.
Number 10.
Yes, number 10, Captain America, the First Avenger.
Ooh.
Another very difficult character to adapt because he was introduced as a World War II character.
Mhm.
And then after World War II, they kind of put him on the shelf, and then they brought him back when Stan Lee had his big superhero Big Bang. And they did a really smart thing, which was, okay, we're going to take his story to World War II. This is going to be a World War II Indiana Jones style adventure.
Yeah.
And we're going to start from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing about it is that previous attempts to adapt Captain America to movies have always looked ridiculous. Like,
yes.
They looked like some dude in a spandex.
Because it was just some dude in some cheap spandex.
Yeah. But here they actually parodied that. Like, the whole core of the movie is that after the super soldier formula gets lost, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and Steve Rogers is the only super soldier, they're like, okay, well, you're too valuable to use in combat, which is what he signed up for. He wants to fight Nazis.
Yeah.
And they reduce him to being a propaganda tool, which is exactly what the comic book character was.
I love this.
A war propaganda tool. So they have him doing USO shows and talking to the troops.
And he's wearing that shitty uniform.
Yeah. And then, of course, when his buddies get stuck behind enemy lines, he's got to go save the day. Great Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones vibes. Awesome villain. Hugo Weaving is the Red Skull.
Ooh, great villain.
The great thing about the Red Skull is that he's a Nazi who thinks Hitler is too moderate. I mean, how can you go wrong, right?
Yes.
So, great
villain.
It's Captain America done right.
I agree with you. I loved it. I saw that one in the theaters too, and I really, really love that movie. It's actually not that far. I'm going to be talking about it in a minute. I actually ranked it one higher than you. My number 10 is Iron Man 1. My number 10 is Iron Man 1. And mostly for all the reasons Pete already mentioned. Let me see if I have anything that I wrote here, any extra notes, but I don't think I did. Great opening and hardcore with the terrorists. Oh, yeah, the opening with the terrorists filming Stark and like after the attack. Yeah. Man, that was so visceral. And especially, some of the younger people out there won't remember the Iraq War. But that was stuff that we would see on the news all the time, with those car bombings and like journalists even were caught in the middle, embedded journalists that got car bombed. So it 100%, I thought it was very, very, courageous of them to open up the movie with, super triggering. Like, I don't think they could do that today, It's like, dude, you're showing like a bunch of Muslim terrorists doing Muslim terrorist shit. Like, that's crazy. So that was kind of cool. I like the whole part about how he built his first Iron Man suit unnoticed is cool, even though it's ridiculous, but it's cool as hell.
Yeah.
And I like that the building of his suit became part of the plot and not the usual montage, how you usually have with the training and the montage. No, it was like the movie was the montage. It's like him getting accustomed to the suit, him trying to figure it all out. That was a different take that I hadn't seen before in a superhero movie. And Robert Downey Jr., what can't you say about this guy? He's fucking amazing. I've been a fan of him since like Chaplin went way back in the day, or Judy. What's that movie that he did? Daisy and June or something. I don't know. He's been around forever. Well, We love Robert Downey Jr. So glad that he turned it around, yeah, because he's a guy with a lot of problems. So
That was one of the reasons they cast him.
yeah,
They felt that like he and Tony Stark were a lot alike in some respects.
yeah.
People who had substance abuse problems.
Yeah, yeah. So he makes the movie, of course. That goes without saying. And he has pep, and he has his own style, and it's a great start to what will become the incredible MCU. And it just feels fresh. It's such a fresh feeling movie. It's got pep. It's got great pacing. Um, and like I said, like I think the coolest part about it is that it feels like a standalone film for me.
Yeah.
Like it just was like, let's just shoot this shit and see what happens. And then by the time you get to Iron Man 2, which I do agree is a better made movie, although I'm just not interested in what it has to say. That's when it feels like an MCU movie where they got the formula, when they all kind of become cookie cutter. This one does not feel cookie cutter. It's like, I don't think you'd have a movie now coming from the MCU, which would start with, a bunch of Muslims attacking
Yeah.
attacking a rich white guy.
Yeah.
They can't do that shit these days. Good Lord, that was 2008. How the world has changed. But definitely cool movie. Go ahead, Mr. Number 9.
My number 9 is more Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Oh, I love this one. This one's way high for me, but go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the first time they actually tried to really like adapt a story from the comic books directly to the screen. I haven't read the story, so I don't know how faithful it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it touches on two of the biggest core themes in Captain America, which is number one, what is the difference between serving your country and your government?
Mm-hmm.
Because Cap's all about serving America,
Mm-hmm.
but the plot of the movie is that he learns that SHIELD, the world's top intelligence agency, has been infiltrated by remnants of Hydra, which is an organization born of the Nazis that he fought in World War II. So the people that he's serving are against everything that he stands for.
Yeah.
And he becomes an outlaw. He goes on the run with the Black Widow. And the other thing is just about he's a man out of his own time. He's not comfortable in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
He misses his own time. He's depressed because he can't be there.
Yeah.
So the fact that it touched on those aspects, I think, really is what made the movie hit.
Mm-hmm.
But you also had a lot of other good things in there, and that it was just basically it was a conventional spy thriller.
It was, yeah. That's what people always love about it.
You could take Captain America, the superhero, out of there. Maybe not the Falcon. This movie introduces the Falcon.
Yeah.
He's pretty superhero-y.
Yeah.
But you could tweak this movie a bit, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be just like a great action movie.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. I'll get into Captain America Civil War a little bit later. But we're on a Captain America rampage right now because my number 9 is Captain America, the First Avenger. This is the first MCU movie to make me go, wow. It's got a unique feel to it that actually gives off a more realistic vibe than the others before it, but it does it without trying too hard. I also love the World War II backdrop. Same reason I think I loved Wonder Woman, the first one. The World War I backdrop was cool too. Red Skull is a fabulous villain. Too bad that he was only there for one movie, although he showed up on Endgame. The fight montages to destroy Hydra bases are a bit boring. In the final fight, it's not as exciting as the bit in the train, but still a great setup movie for what's to come. And we get the first sighting of Hawkeye, which is kind of cool.
No, actually, he's in Thor for a moment.
Oh, he's in Thor for a moment?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He's one of the SHIELD agents guarding the hammer.
Cool. Now, the thing with this movie, I saw this one again in the theater, and I hate 3D movies, and this is one of the first 3D movies that I really enjoyed because whenever Cap threw his fucking shield, it went straight into your head, man. It was so
I
cool.
barely do 3D anymore unless it's like something that really warrants it.
Yeah.
Those glasses give me a fucking headache.
They do when it changes the color grading.
Yeah.
Like, I prefer to take it off because you can see the colors a little bit nicer. So it's very rare. But there was a time when you couldn't see a movie without it being 3D. It's like you were kind of forced into it. This was one of them. And yeah, it's like you have a movie like Thor, the first Thor. Yes, that's a 3D movie because it's got the part in Asgard that's all colorful and blah, blah, blah. But I don't need 3D to see fucking Kansas or wherever the fuck they were, Arizona.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need 3D glasses to see a bunch of desert, you know? So it's like, pick the right movies, like Doctor Strange. I would watch that shit in 3D, like what is it?
The
Multiverse of Madness and shit like that. But I dug this one in 3D. This one was kind of cool. And like Pete said, Captain America is a character. I think he's definitely got crossover appeal. People, even non-Marvel fans, know Captain America, but that doesn't mean that we read him. And so this was like really my first introduction to him. Like I kind of knew basically what Captain America was about. I always felt that he was like Marvel's answer to Superman, you know, like the Boy Scout.
And character-wise, he is.
Yeah, they play off, and I like that they play off of that.
Yeah.
But they know how to do it. They managed to do it a little bit better than Superman in the movies, in that when he sees injustice, a different side of him comes out, which is a little bit darker. He's willing to like throw the punches and kind of sneak around and do like the Batman-ish type stuff too. It won't go as far as Batman does, which is a great balance, which I don't think they never really managed to do that with Superman in the movies, which is a shame because in the comics and the animation, Superman is like that too, which is what makes him interesting in the comics and the cartoons more than in the movies. So I was just curious to see how they're going to handle this character that's supposed to be like Mr. Perfect. And it ends up he's got a lot of flaws. His perfection is his flaws. You know? So they just beautifully captured that. It's not a perfect movie. It definitely, maybe could have been, you could cut like maybe 20 minutes of it and make it flow a little bit better. But overall, very, very well made little movie. And like Pete said, it works as just a movie, not necessarily like a superhero movie. It works with the movie. If you had just a little tweaks here and there, and it would just be like, I don't know, Born Identity or something, it's got those vibes. All right, moving on to number 8.
Yeah, number 8 is the original Thor, which I like for most of the reasons you said, because I'm reading the Thor comics now. I'm actually on 1966.
Okay.
And oh my God, even by comic standards, the 1966 comics are kind of ridiculous. So I think it was Branagh's idea actually to say, like, you cannot play this as a straight face movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people are going to laugh anyway, and then the movie's going to suck.
Yeah.
But if you make the audience feel like they're in on the joke, this could be great.
Yeah.
And he has this classic arc that fits with the comic book, which is the heroes fall from grace and then trying to get his shit together.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole plot is basically Thor fucks up and Odin sends him to Earth, takes away his powers to teach him humility. He's wandering around Earth. Nobody believes he's a god. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He doesn't understand anything. But while he's gone, his brother Loki, who is a major MCU character we haven't even mentioned, Tom Hiddleston.
No, because we haven't had anything with him in it. I think this is although I didn't mention it when I mentioned Thor.
Yeah, we've talked Thor quite a bit.
Yeah.
Doesn't know that shit.
Yeah, sorry.
So
guys,
yes,
because he's great.
Great villain who has an arc over the whole thing where somehow he winds up becoming a hero.
Yes.
But in this, he's like a totally awesome bad guy who takes over Asgard, and the whole plot becomes Thor trying to prove that he's worthy to get his powers back and save his home. Very simple, very old school, but it works because of the humor, the performances, the chemistry of the characters. You got Natalie Portman in there. She's actually pretty good in this. And the leads are really well cast. I haven't seen Chris Hemsworth do very well in anything else, but Hiddleston's actually been in a lot of other good stuff. And Anthony Hopkins as Odin, the All-Father. Yeah. So you got 2 Oscar winners in that one.
2011. Yeah, what was Tom Hiddleston in?
He was in this really weird Jim Jarmusch movie about vampires that
Mm.
co-starred Tilda Swinton. I can't remember the name of it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but it's a good cast. You got Idris Elba there as Heimdall.
yeah, as a Norse god.
Yeah, well, it's Marvel. Yeah. Uh, and I agree with you. And yeah, guys, sorry for not giving Loki some love. And at the end here, we'll kind of try to do like we did with when we did our Star Trek ranking and see how we rank these villains in these characters. And Loki is definitely up top for me and most people. Always got that show, right? I finally saw season one of Loki. It was okay.
Yeah, it's a very convoluted show. Like stuff that
Extremely.
deals with time travel and continuums. It makes my head hurt.
Yeah, yeah, extremely. I didn't like it that much. It was okay. I haven't seen part two yet, season two. Number eight, guys, this for me is the biggest shock of how much I really love this movie compared to leaving the theater and being like, what the fuck did I just wasted 2 hours of my life? And that's Ant-Man. I just thought it was snappy. It's fun. It's more grounded in reality. I like that. Kind of going. I keep saying I'm not a Marvel fan, and I think one of the things that I don't like so much about Marvel is how like fantasy. It feels more fantasy to me than DC for whatever reason. DC always felt a little bit more grounded. So I like superheroes that feel like they could be walking down the street, which I think is why I like X-Men, Spider-Man. Like of the Marvel heroes that I like the ones that are living in Brooklyn, that are living in Washington, D.C. And Ant-Man felt like he could have been living in my neighborhood, which I dig. Uh, Paul Rudd is much less goofy than how they make him out to be in the later movies, because I'm really not into his character as much in the later movies. Here he's more grounded. He's not the butt of the jokes, even though he's a little bit silly. He busts some good jokes, in fact. So I dig it. I don't know what it is about this movie that just in the second viewing, it just connected with me. Maybe if I watch it a third time, I'll be like, this movie sucks, and it'll be at the bottom. But for now, Ant-Man 2015 is my number eight
All right.
pick. And we are gonna keep moving right along, guys, to our Pete's number seven.
My number seven is
Where the fuck? Oh.
Age of Ultron. Um, this is exactly what most people love about Marvel movies, and the people who hate them hate. It's
Mm-hmm.
a giant CGI fest. It's everything but the kitchen sink. I didn't see this on the big screen, which is unfortunate because, man, there's so much to look at in this
Mm-hmm.
movie.
Yeah.
And it does introduce one of the great Marvel villains. Unfortunately, he's a one off in the franchise. In the comics, Ultron is actually an adamantium robot built by Henry Pym. But I liked what they did with him in this one. He's a AI program
Mm-hmm.
designed by Tony Stark to protect the world from threats like the ones they faced in the original Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
But he decides that the best way to protect the human race is to just kill them all. You're not worth saving.
Yeah, classic. It's like, yeah, classic
So what I
AI.
liked about this, actually, what they did with Ultron that was different from the comics, although they did wind up doing this eventually, is Ultron is everywhere. He can build bodies and he can overtake computer systems. He's basically like the ultimate computer virus,
Mm-hmm.
but he can fight you and kill you as well. And it does all come down to that one big battle at the end in Slavovia or wherever the hell they're fighting.
Slovakia, yeah.
Yeah, where like a giant chunk of the city gets. I mean, that's an impressive effect. Like the effects
Yes.
in this movie are just out of this world. Not much going on in terms of the characters, except for the fact that the Hulk loses his shit a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it does introduce Wanda and Vision and a terrible version of Quicksilver that it's just as well they killed him off,
Yeah, very
actually.
forgettable.
I like the
Very.
Evan Peters version much better. But yeah, just a fun
Is that the
special.
same Quicksilver from the X-Men movies?
Yes,
Oh, I
yes.
didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was boring this one. Yeah.
Yeah. So just a fun special effects movie to watch with some popcorn and not think about too much.
Yeah, it's weird with this movie, man, because I know that I've seen it a bunch of times. It's like I have this weird relationship with this movie because I have seen it at least three, maybe four times, which I think is more than the other Avengers movies that I actually do like. And I don't know why either. It's like playing at somebody's house when I'm there, but in either case, there was this one time that I watched it that I really loved it, and I don't know what it was. Maybe I drank something before, but ever since then and before then, it's just like it's mid. It's mid level. It's exactly what Pete said. It's what people don't like about these movies. It's just a big CGI fest. The best part of the movie for me, and I think most people would agree, is that scene before Ultron comes up, where they're all just chilling in Tony's
Yeah,
thing, and then they're all trying to lift up the hammer, which has a great payoff in the end with Endgame when Captain America actually does lift the hammer. Because it shakes a little bit in Thor's face. It's like, oh my god, is he actually gonna do it? Like moments like that. That just shows you how good these actors understood these roles and how well the writers understood the
Chris Evans has
characters.
actually turned out to be a pretty good actor. He's gotten a lot of parts after Captain
Oh
America.
yeah, they have all of them have, but unfortunately,
Not Helmsworth. He's been
no,
stuck in.
he's got those Netflix movies that kind of they make buck. The thing is this, which I thought was interesting when people talk about and a lot about the death of cinema and what are the factors of it, and one of them is the death of the movie star. And when you think about it, it's like other than Robert Downey Jr., like none of these guys you would have been able to carry a movie like to that level of like a Tom Cruise to make like 500, 600, $1 billion,
Right.
and he gave great examples which I didn't even think about. Like back in the 90s, we would see just a big old face of Jack Nicholson and say, you know Bruce is back. Like, who the fuck is Bruce? You don't know, but it's Jack Nicholson. You're
Yeah.
gonna watch that movie.
Yeah.
Like there's no actor these days who has that much power. Not many that I can think of that could just be like just the actor's face and be like, get ready for some fun,
Yeah.
and you just go watch the movie. So a lot of these guys from these Marvel movies are like that, where they really haven't been able to make a name for themselves on that level um, after these movies. But they're great with these movies. They were just perfectly cast. So that's my favorite scene.
I think Zoe Saldana is actually the highest grossing actress of all
Oh
time.
yes,
Just by appearing in Guardians and Avatar.
yeah, which is crazy. But she's made buck off of those two movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like, what's his name? I think Samuel L. Jackson is actually the highest paid actor of all time because of his involvement, or not the highest paid, but the actor that's been in the highest grossing movies of all time
Mm-hmm.
because of his involvement with the Marvel franchise and the Star Wars, the prequels. So, yes, yes, yes. All right, guys, getting down to the nitty gritty, it's Pete's number 7 pick.
No, I did my number 7. It's your number 6.
So now it's back to me. So now it's my number 7, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because you went first. So it's Black Panther. And Black Panther, guys, it's like whenever you think about Black Panther, you got to think about the cultural and then the actual movie. Culturally, super important, I guess, for the moment, having this big, major. I mean, there have been black superheroes before. Blade, which a lot of people consider factually so, like the first Marvel movie, but nothing to this.
Howard the Duck is the first one.
Oh, I forgot about it. And I just saw a documentary about Howard the Duck. That was crazy. The making of Howard the Duck. Yes, so all props to Howard the Duck. But we've had black folks in movies before, but never to this level, of hype and massiveness and expansiveness. And that side of it is cool. Like even when I was rewatching this movie, it gives you like little goosebumps because you're like, oh, cool. Like I think of my little cousin when I took him to see this movie, and it's like, look, it's a black person on the screen, that's righteous and doing the cool things, So there's that side. But then as far as the movie itself, that's another story. And for me, it's just mid-level. Like there's nothing. It follows the cookie cutter formula of every Marvel movie. What saves it for me is one, the cultural side of it. It looks beautiful too, like visually.
Yeah, I don't know where they shot it.
I don't know.
Wakanda looks.
Well, you know where? what's his name? Tyler Perry Studios.
Oh, okay.
He recorded a lot of that, or they taped a lot of Black Panther using his studios down in Atlanta. That and Killmonger. Killmonger for me saves this movie. One, because I have a man crush on Michael J. whatever his name is, Michael B. Jordan.
Mhm.
He's got a cool look, but he's just a villain, like Pete was saying, this very nihilistic villain that, if you don't think too hard about it, kind of has a point. Like, shit, we got all these riches in Wakanda. Why the fuck are we not sharing it with the rest of the world? We got ghettos all over the place. We got black people oppressed all over this damn world. Why are we holding it for ourselves? That makes sense. Unfortunately, it comes along with let's kill Whitey.
Yeah.
Let's just like kill everybody that doesn't agree with
Yeah.
this very righteous plan of mine, which in the end, even Black Panther ends up adopting. They say, yeah, well, he was nutty, but at least he was right about this. So in the same way as Thanos, it's like, yo, it's overpopulation, it's crazy. It's like, we got to get this shit together. Take away the mass genocide side of it. He's not wrong. So I like villains like that, and very charismatic right from his introduction. Uh, wasn't too big on his final fight with T'Challa, and I think even at the time, people kind of complained about it, about the CGI. Like a lot of folks were making complaints about how the end of these movies, it seems like the CGI gets a little clunky. And apparently, it was an actual thing about like they kind of run out of money and time, and then they just kind of piece together the ending, and it looks so cartoonish. Their last fight when those little trains are passing by, you can tell that it's just too
That's another MCU trope is trains, man. Like there's a lot of
a
trains in
lot of
MCU
fucking
movies.
trains. But guys, I mean, not much bad to say about Black Panther. It's just not like the most amazing Marvel movie ever, but it's definitely top 10. It's different. It's unique. They were going for something, so I like movies that try to go for something that hasn't been done before. So, and it works for the most part. It's not groundbreaking in any form, uh, but it's interesting and cool at the same time. Moving on to and rest in peace, fucking Chadwick Boseman, who
Yes,
was a
indeed.
great fucking actor outside of Black Panther.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of his stuff
You
actually.
saw
Ma Rainey's Black
that
Bottom.
was
Yeah.
good, but that Spike Lee movie, the one where like they were the Vietnam vets that went
Oh,
back,
the Five Bloods.
that
Yeah,
was fucking great.
yeah, yeah. That was actually one of my favorite movies
Yeah, that was
of
really
that
great.
year.
And I still haven't seen him in the Thurgood Marshall movie, or the one where he plays the baseball guy. Fuck, guys, it's late and I'm losing my brain. What's the first black baseball player? Frankie Robinson. Yeah, Frankie Robinson. Yeah, and I think he plays this movie. Jackie Robinson. Oh my God,
Yes,
guys,
yes.
I'm having a brain fart here. But he played Jackie Robinson,
Oh,
Chadwick
wow.
Boseman. Oh, there he is, right there. 42 shows why Jackie Robinson still matters. So rest in peace, because he is Black Panther. And that's, I think Pete and I said this before. I think the real MVPs of this whole Marvel cinematic universe are the fucking casting directors. Whoever was
Yeah.
just like just sitting behind desks saying this, minus like very few, like Brie Larson. I don't think she was Brie Larson, whatever. I don't think was the best casting choice, but very few of these characters you can say, wow, that was a bad casting choice. Really good stuff.
Jonathan Majors, maybe.
Well, yeah, but they couldn't see who saw that coming, I guess, because he is a great actor. He's a really good
Yeah,
actor.
well, apparently a lot of people have known he was a terrible person for a
Yeah.
long time, so
Oh.
somebody probably should have seen it coming.
Oh well. On to the
Yes.
next one.
Yes.
Number 6.
Number 6 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Ah.
James Gunn, the co-writer of Romeo and Juliet, does it again.
And now the new head of DC,
Yes, he
which
is.
is crazy. I can't wait to see what DC is going to become with this guy because he's so insane.
Yes.
But go ahead.
Yeah, so this basically has all the good vibes that the first one did. Much bigger plot, I think, in terms of what's at stake in this movie. It's basically Quill's father is Ego, played by Kurt Russell, who's a living planet who needs one of his children to basically help him spread throughout the universe and
Yes.
destroy everything. So even before Infinity War, this is a story of where the fate of the universe is on the line.
Hmm.
But it brings a lot of other characters into the dynamic. They introduce Mantis. They
What's this
introduce
guy? What's the purple guy?
Purple Guy. Oh, you mean the Michael Rooker character,
Yeah,
the
that.
Ravager?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the first one.
Oh, he was in the first one. Oh, yeah, he was. You're right.
Yeah,
I don't like him.
um,
I'm not a big fan. But go ahead.
yeah, but they really add something to the dynamic. There's also Gamora's sister.
Yondu, that's his name.
Yeah,
I was gonna
yeah,
say Windu, and I was like, no, Windu is from Star Wars, but it's Yondu.
yeah. Which was this Nebula? Nebula. So
Nebula's cool.
they're
Yes.
working out a lot of shit. And it's mostly like it starts with this emotional reunion with his father, blah, blah, blah. And everyone else is getting sinister vibes except for Quill. So a lot of the movie is them trying to say, hey, man, something's not kosher here. I think
Mhm.
Mantis is the one who feels it because she's empathic. And yet, in the middle of that, there's still a lot of humor. There's like all this humor about Quill's fixation on 80s culture from
Mhm.
Earth because that's all he knows of Earth.
Yes, Kevin
There's his,
Bacon.
yeah,
Kevin
there's
Bacon.
his romance with Gamora.
Mhm.
And I think one of my favorite scenes in any of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies is when Mantis picks up on his feelings for Gamora and she says, "You love her." And of course, Drax is like, "Ha ha ha! She just told your deepest and most personal secret to everybody. You
Mhm.
must be so embarrassed." It's like, it's such a perfect example of the way the different character dynamics work. Like he's the unfiltered guy,
Yes, yeah.
she's the empath, Quill's the guy keeping his shit inside, Gamora's the cynic. I think the dynamics between the characters are just more defined in this movie, which is what makes it work, along with the higher stakes and the bigger production values. I
Yeah,
think,
it's a beautiful looking movie.
yeah,
The, yeah, unfortunately, I tried to like this movie. I couldn't get into it. Like everything you said, I totally get. They went for it. It just for me, it didn't hit. But everything you said, I feel they did better in the first one. But cool movie, cool movie. I know a lot of people love Guardians too. Um, Number five. Oh, now we're getting to the big hitters. Number five, guys. I just saw last night. No, I didn't see it last night, or did I? Oh yeah, Endgame. Number six. Sorry, my number six movie is Endgame. I got quick notes here. Slow first hour, cool campy time travel. We made up second hour, legendary third hour. That sums up Endgame. Captain picking up the hammer will never not be the coolest superhero thing Marvel has ever done. It sends chills down my spine. And then, no, that, and then when he's like, Avengers,
yes.
oh man, no, come on. That last hour is just like, that's what you paid your $20 or $30 for. Although, even though here I said slow first hour, cool, campy, time travel, blah, blah, blah. I watched it last night and I actually dug the first hour.
Oh yeah, I love the first hour. You
Yeah,
need that. You need the
no,
setup.
you do need the setup. It's just, again, what ruins it for me a little bit and like knocks it down just a few notches is just they just got into this humor thing, like heavy, especially after Ragnarok. Ragnarok, I think they just opened up the floodgates because it was colorful and cool, like Zeppelin music, and they just it went too far. And I can ride with it with Thor Ragnarok just because it looks like a cartoon. It looks ridiculous. So I'm not thinking too hard about it. But Avengers Endgame is like grounded in fucking reality. We just had Infinity War, which was like tragic. And then dudes are like busting jokes the whole time. And I'm like, what the hell, dude? Like, the world just fucking ended. And then if you start to think,
Well, there's been some time though. There's
it's
been like 5
5 years
years.
later, that really slow. 5 No, but people are like fucking Captain America's doing like
PTSD meetings.
PTSD meetings. What's her name? Scarlet, not Scarlet Witch. Black Widow's all depressed. Dudes turn into like a savage killer, Black Hawk, or what's his name, Hawkeye. Um, it's like it's fucked up. Like everybody in this movie is fucked up to some level, and so the jokes don't make much sense to me. Um, I don't like what they did with the Hulk, with making him Professor Hulk. I think that's
That has been done
ridiculous.
in the comics.
It has been, and I don't like it in the comics either. I can kind of deal with Planet Hulk, where he talks, and because you can kind of have the Hulk talk at some point in order to carry a comic.
They've done
or
some
story.
weird things with
Yeah.
the Hulk in the comics.
But Professor Hulk is just like they just watered him down so much. And even there's that scene where they're like going back to like the New York fight and they're kind of making fun of it. He's like, oh, that's so gratuitous. And he kind of fakes it like he's smashing stuff. And I don't know. I think it gets in the way of the movie because this could have been a seriously dark movie, Avengers Endgame.
They just had a seriously dark movie.
I know, but go darker, man. Like this is the last one. Like just go. I mean, the last hour is dark. That's why I like it.
Yeah.
The last hour is just dark as fuck. I mean, they got what's his name? Thor. Thor chops off Thanos' head, which is badass in the beginning, but then it just becomes kind of like just a regular drama with like funny moments, and I'm like, yeah, but. Cool movie, man. It's still epic as fuck. And if you were there in the theater when it played, you will. It's like great movie memories.
I missed this one in the theaters.
Man, great movie memories, dude. When he picked up that hammer, that theater, I'm getting goosebumps. The theater was like, yeah, like the whole theater was like, because we did not see that coming, because we forgot about that from Age of Ultron. We just thought it was another little MCU joke. And he picks that, and not only does he pick it up, he keeps it, because he gets his ass beat. But then when it's Avengers Assemble, he's got the hammer back. It's cool. But yeah, for me, that's the only issue I have with the movie is how sometimes it feels unbalanced. And if you think too much about it, it starts to fall apart. Even like their whole time travel, it's like, don't explain it. Just do it. Don't try to over-explain it. And then when you think about it, like half the world's population disappeared and then half of them come back, I would think that would be kind of terrible too.
Well, that's actually what most of the post Infinity War content focuses on. Like Captain America, or not Captain America, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier is devoted entirely to that problem.
To that problem of what happens when everybody came back. Oh, good. Yeah, I saw clips of that. So I might actually watch it just to see how they address it, because that part's kind of insane too. But great arc, obviously, for Tony at the end, with him dying, which I didn't even pick up on. The first Avenger movie, he sacrifices himself and you think he's going to die. So it was just the perfect mirror of like, that was his purpose. Like he had to make the ultimate sacrifice. So cool. Let's go. Now it's your number 5.
Now it's number 5, and that is Guardians 1.
Oh yeah.
This is, I think, one of the best cases I've ever seen of a director like showing his influences so obviously, but making it his own. Like you can tell like he's such a Star Wars geek, but he makes a space opera that is nothing like Star Wars. There's a lot more focus on humor, a lot less focus on mythology building. And the idea is basically just bringing these characters together for a common purpose, making them as mismatched as possible, and making it funny, but at the same time exciting. Like, it's exactly what George Lucas was trying to do with Star Wars, which was bring you that thrill-a-minute feeling of the old Flash Gordon serials, Buck Rogers, that sort of thing, where it's like, don't even think about it, man. Like, let's just go have some fun. enjoy the action.
Mhm.
But what George Lucas and James Gunn did was give it a budget, man. Like, because if you do it on the cheap, it just looks like some shitty 50s sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
But
What do they call it? Actually, Tony Stark makes a joke about it. Like, you're like, what's his name? The Queen. Queen did the soundtrack to that movie.
oh, Flash Gordon.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what I
Flash.
said.
Yeah, he calls him Flash. Oh, you said it, Flash. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he called it Flash.
Yeah,
Gordon.
I'm actually gonna rewatch that pretty soon. I haven't
Yes.
seen it in a long time.
Yes.
But yeah, that's what it would be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's this, and it's also, I think, not one of the first mentions of the Infinity Stones, but I think it's maybe the second or third. Their first time is in Captain America because it powers the nuclear reactor thingy.
Wasn't it in Thor? Because it fell on the. Remember, like that the Tesseract
Yeah.
fell on that area that they had to build that whole.
Right.
Because his hammer was around. I think it was way back then.
There's definitely a big link, and what an amazing ending, where he challenges Ronan the
To the
Accuser
dance
to a
off.
dance off.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh
Like
my
Footloose, like the great American hero Kevin Bacon.
God. Yes.
I was looking at the cast list for that movie, and they got Kevin Bacon listed. I wonder if it'd be cool if he got residuals for that, for them mentioning his name so much.
No, he's in one of the holiday specials. He's in the holiday special.
Oh, cool.
They kidnapped Kevin Bacon to bring him to Quill as a birthday present, Christmas present.
You're kidding me? Now I gotta watch that.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Oh God, that's really funny. Oh, good that Kevin Bacon's got a sense of humor about that shit. Let's see, guys. We're almost at the end here. I can't figure out what movie I'm missing, dude. Look, 21 out of 21. I've gone up and down this list a million times, and I cannot figure out which movie I'm missing. So I'm gonna give up because I'm not paying full attention here because of that. But now we are at number 5 for me, which is Infinity War, which I like just a tad bit more than Endgame, but mostly for the same reasons I've been saying. It's a little bit more serious. I like that it sets up the ultimate stakes and delivers the goods. It's about as great as a superhero movie can be. I saw this one also in the theater, and that audience was just in shock as everybody was disappearing. Yeah, we kind of figured they were mostly all, if not all, going to come back because nobody stays dead in these types of movies, not for too long. But it was still shocking. It was like, yes, finally we get a movie where the bad guy wins. And it had a little bit of the Empire Strikes Back feel to it, which was really great. And like Empire Strikes Back, it's dark, it's serious. It's like Thanos was not fucking around. I can't remember. Can you remember any all jokes from that movie? I can't.
Oh no!
Like off the top of my head, I can't even think. I mean, I'm sure they were there in the dialogue because they love those little quips, but I can't really, just off the top of my head, think of that many jokes. And I mean, I just brought up Empire Strikes Back, and in a way, they're kind of parallel, man. Because Empire Strikes Back. And then you get Return of the Jedi. And I think Return of the Jedi has a little bit of that same problem that I have with Endgame, where it's like, it's silly. It's like for kids, but at the same time, it's very adult. And it's really dark, Return of the Jedi. But at the same time, it's silly as fuck. And Endgame, for me, has that thing where there's parts of that movie that are like it's like for kids and silly, and they're joking. And then it goes dark as fuck. I like that Infinity War just kept it on this shit's dark. Like, get ready, buckle in, because you guys are not ready for what's about to happen. And none of us were. Like, that was
a friend of mine
awesome.
Took his kid to see it. His kid's a huge Spider-Man fan.
Oh,
I think he was like 6 years old.
Good Lord.
And yeah, afterwards he had to talk to her. He was crying. He's
It's
like,
just
it's gonna be okay. He's not dead for real.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. When you saw Spider-Man, I think the two that really hit for people was Spider-Man and Black Panther, because that became a fan favorite after that movie made 1 billion. And I don't think Marvel was expecting Black Panther to hit as hard as it did, because
Yeah.
otherwise, I think they probably would have left them away from the blip or whatever they call it, the snap. And yeah, when you see those characters go, you're like, "Fuck, this shit's real, man." Or, or even like, because at the end, Wanda is able to destroy the stone inside of Vision's head, but then you weren't expecting when he just turns the time around.
Yeah, it's like, holy fuck, you can't win.
You can't win, and then Thor comes in, and you should have gone for the head. You're like, fuck, man. It's like everything's just perfect, 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 perfect.
Yeah.
It's not my number one movie because, well, obviously there's four that I like better, but on any given day it would be number one. Not much to say bad about this movie. All right, go ahead. Number 4.
Number 4 is the original Avengers, which I actually didn't like when I first saw it because I didn't see it in the theaters. I saw it on a cam, and yeah, all cams are shit. But when I finally saw a good quality version, I got what the big deal was, and I wish I'd been in the theaters because the concept of an Avengers movie was just so alien to us growing up. It's like it's not like the X-Men where like they're a team,
Yeah.
they're a family. It's a bunch of very different individuals. So you have to introduce the individuals first in order to get a sense of the characters. And they spent like 4 years doing that. And then it's like, all right, now we're going to put the band together. And it was great how they did it. It was very similar, actually, to the Avengers comic book story, which involved Loki taking control of the Hulk, I think. And then all the other heroes have to stop him.
Good. I got to read that. That sounds like a cool story.
Yeah. I mean, for the 60s, it's all right. But in this one, Loki steals the Tesseract. So it's nice how right off the bat, they tie all these threads because the Tesseract is left over from Captain America. Loki is left over from Thor. And Nick Fury is the one supervising it. He's left over from the Iron Man movies. So right away, you have these common links where it makes sense to bring the characters together. Like it's not forced. Like Justice League.
Like Justice, yeah, I was gonna say.
It's like
exactly.
we're just gonna we're gonna put this guy together because that's the way the movie has to go.
Exactly.
In this case, there were already these threads from different movies where it made sense for them to come together. And when they finally do at the end, not at the end, at the midway point, it's like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, this is what we've been waiting our whole lives to see. This movie is basically a nerd's paradise.
Yeah.
And yeah, it didn't disappoint, man. The final alien invasion of New York, it's got everything.
It is. And this one, well, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but yeah, good feelings. Next on my list, which is my number 4 movie, is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I really love this movie, as a lot of people seem to. Now, the thing with Captain America: The Winter Soldiers, it's pretty much everything Pete said. It just works as a fucking, just like a movie, okay? With a few tweaks, this movie would work even outside the superhero genre. It's beautifully crafted, acted, in film. Winter Soldier, definitely top tier MCU. And it just made me really understand the Captain American character. I think that's why I ended up becoming a Captain American fan more than an Iron Man fan, just from watching the movie. And I dug like what he was about, because definitely he's the optimistic Boy Scout that he's always going to you try to see the best in people. And it was so cool to put that character in the present, in this present that we live today, that's so cynical. It's so, like you can't trust anybody. I mean, back then too, you're in the middle of a war, but even more now. Everything that you thought was bad then has been multiplied to the 9th, 10th degree. you know, in today's world. But he, the smart thing that they did with the characters, that they didn't change his essence. He's still goody two shoes, but he's willing to play the game to get, a little bit at least, to get to where he needs to go to protect the people that need to be protected, which is what, unfortunately, Zack Snyder fucked up with Superman, because he made Superman as cynical and as depressed and as,
He made him like Zack Snyder.
yeah, he made him be like a Superman that actually grew up in this world. It's just like kind of like emo-ish and depressed and all this stuff, that like a Superman that doesn't smile. And maybe that's more realistic. Had Captain America been created in 1990 or 2010 instead of 1940 or whatever, yeah, maybe he would have grown to become that character too. That's kind of like what the new Superman is, but it doesn't allow for a contrast, which is what makes this movie interesting. Because if you have the world depressed and the characters depressed, what's interesting? It's like I'm watching a depressed fucking movie. Captain America, no. This is a good guy. This is one of the good guys that happens to be in a really shitty world, having to deal with a lot of shitty people, including Tony Stark and everybody else around them. But he never loses who he is, and he never loses, the heart of what Captain America is. And it gives that nice contrast of him versus the world versus the other characters as like the salt and pepper, that's the problem. Yeah, like Batman is supposed to be that contrast for Superman.
Yeah.
But in the Zack Snyder movies, there wasn't that much of a difference
No.
between Superman and Batman. Like Superman would be like what Batman usually is. And then Batman went like extra. He went like Punisher level in those DC movies. It was crazy. And I say this as someone that really appreciates some of those movies, guys. But I can even see where it's kind of wacky, like what they try to do with it. So this movie just hit the balance. It's really, really fucking well made. And we got, what's his name? Bucky, which I was never a big fan of.
No, nobody was. That's why they reinvented him.
Yeah, and he's really, really cool.
That's another actor who's done some really good stuff, Sebastian Stan.
Yeah, cool actor.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this is the top three.
All right.
Before we get to the top three, Peter, let's see if we can do this. I think we can do this off the top of our heads. Let's see.
All right.
MCU villains. Oops, I wrote villains with an M by mistake. Let's fix that. And I don't know. Just look at some of these pictures and tell me who you think are the top three villains in the MCU. I think we're going to have the same answer. Honestly. Look, you got the little bit of Red Skull there. You got Hela. Oh, she was good. I liked Hela.
Yeah.
You got Thanos, of course. Let me see. Who stands out to you as like the top tier MCU villains?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think at this point, Thanos is number one, of course.
Yes.
He wasn't CGI. Well, he was CGI, but it was.
Oh, this is the guy from the Dark World. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, these guys are forgettable here at the bottom.
Yes, there's a lot of
Crow by the Eternals. I didn't like that. Oh, this girl from Ghost from Ant-Man. Yeah, I couldn't get into her at all. I like Ivan Vanko from Iron Man 2. There's our boy from The Shield. Let's go faster here because it's going to take forever. Wow. Let's get to the bottom. So probably we're looking at this list here from Men's Health just to refresh our memories at some of the heroes. Here they put Loki at number one.
Yeah, Loki could take number one, except for the fact that he becomes a hero.
Spider-Man No Way Home, Green Goblin, no.
That's past Avengers.
Scarlet Witch couldn't get into.
Past Avengers.
Oh, yeah. Vulture is in there, Michael Keaton. Zemo?
No.
I don't even remember this guy.
No, he's the villain in Civil War.
Yeah, probably why I didn't remember him.
That's
after, but that's good. Killmonger.
Yeah, could
it's
be.
Good. Namor is after. Namor.
Yeah.
I like the High Evolutionary in Guardians 3, but that's after. Mysterio is after. There's Ego.
Yeah, Ego could be. Yeah.
So look, we got Ego, we got Thanos, we got Loki, got Killmonger, which I didn't see on this list yet. Or
He
did I pass it?
was.
Oh, you passed it. You got Ultron,
I would put Ultron in the top three for sure.
Obadiah Stane, I really dig.
Yeah.
He was pretty good. Red Skull,
Red Skull is
great
up there.
look, but I don't know how if I would call him a great villain. Grandmaster, yeah, he was okay. Justin Hammer in Iron Man 2, didn't dig. They didn't like Abomination.
I liked Abomination. They actually brought him back in the She-Hulk series.
We got Brock Romanoff, Crossbones, in the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, Alexander Pierce was good. Robert Redford.
Oh, I'm a big Hella fan. So I'm going to put her there. I was not impressed with Kang the Conqueror from the Loki series. So I don't really miss the fact that he's no longer there. We got Gore the God Butcher. That was horrible. Ronan was okay. Not a great villain. He's more like a mid-tier. He feels more like... This guy was cool. Mads Mikkelsen in Doctor Strange.
Yes.
He was actually one of the better
actor.
parts of that movie. Yeah, great actor. We have Aisha from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and 3. And Walter Goggins and Sony Birch. Look, unless you got somebody else to add to this list. I got Ronan, Hela, Red Skull, Ego, Thanos, Loki, Killmonger, Ultron, and Obadiah.
Yeah.
Who makes your top three?
My top three would be Kang, Loki, and
Kang from
Oh, sorry, no, not Kang. Sorry. Thanos, Loki, and Ultron.
Man, Ultron is fucking cool.
But he edges out Alexander Pierce, actually.
Yeah.
He's a recurring villain. Most two of them are one of them. Ultron is a one shot.
No, I like Ultron a lot. But I'm gonna go with Thanos, definitely. That's the number one. But I'm gonna go Killmonger, because I think Thanos and Killmonger have similar styles, just different objectives at the end, but similar reasoning, kind of warped reasoning. And Hela, just for being a crazy bitch. And it's fucking what's her name?
Kate Blanchett.
Yeah, Kate Blanchett could like read a fucking dictionary and I would be like, I would be sticking my tongue out to eat her out. And I don't even like eating women out. Not regularly. Yes, she's just like, it's fucking Kate Blanchett. And that's enough for me. And she was cool, man. When she like that, when they first meet her, Thor and Loki, and she fucks them up.
Yeah.
Tears his eye out, just like destroys his hammer.
Yeah.
And she's just like, every once in a while in a superhero movie, it's cool to just have a villain that's a villain because they're just fucked up crazy.
Yeah, well, she's a god.
Yes.
So she's not just crazy. She's, it's her purpose.
Yeah,
like,
but I'm saying you don't need to have that whole motive. What is my motivation? And what am I'm trying to bring order to? No, it's like, dude, like, I got to bring hell to this fucking planet. Like, it's prophesied. That's my job. I'm just like a bad guy just because I'm a bad guy. I don't need any emotional shit before that. So that's our top three. Maybe before we get to number one, we'll see who our favorite heroes are.
Oh man, we gotta wrap this up.
Oh, we're about to wrap it up. It'll be quick because it's about to be 10 o'clock.
All right.
So let's go. Number three.
Number three is Endgame. Yes. Endgame actually gets better on multiple watches. The first time,
I kind of agree.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those anticipated movies like Return of the Jedi where you're like, oh, you gotta see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it really well. Like, it was long, but it needed to be long.
Oh, for sure.
It revolves around time travel. So you gotta have like, how are they gonna fix this situation? Because they're gonna fix it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to explain the situation, but not too much, because whatever it is like beyond science at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way that the audience can just sort of roll with. And then the execution, I think, is what I really liked about the second act, because they all have to travel back in time to different places that were already MCU movies. And I thought this was like a great thing that they did
Mm-hmm.
was have the movie overlapping with other MCU movies in a way where they were interacting with the movies in such a way that it actually changed the story,
Yeah.
which allowed some other things to unfold afterwards.
Yeah, a lot of Disney Plus series come out of that. Yeah.
Hmm. And there were some fine moments, like Thor seeing his mom knowing she's gonna die. Tony meeting
Wonderful
his
moment.
dad
Great
was
moment.
a great moment as well.
Captain
Captain
seeing his
America,
bitch, yeah.
Captain America fighting himself. That was an
Oh, of course.
amazing
No,
scene.
that's like top tier scene. Yes. And then
Yeah.
that's America's ass. Yes.
Yeah.
That is America's ass.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like the unconvinced, because it's an Avengers movie, but there is no Avengers, really.
Yes.
So your Avengers team is what? It's Captain America, Thor, the Black Widow, Ant-Man, Gamora.
No, Gamora's not in there yet.
No, not Gamora, but her
Nebula.
sister.
Nebula.
Yeah.
The Hulk.
Rocket, the Hulk,
Yeah.
and Iron Man, of course.
Iron Man is there. In what's her name? Captain Marvel for a split second, but then
she's not in on the time travel.
Yeah, she gets out.
Yeah, and then,
and what's his name? Don Cheadle.
Oh yeah, War Machine.
War Machine, because he goes to that planet with Scarlet. I keep wanting to say Scarlet Witch. Black Widow and Hawkeye.
Yes.
The four of them go to that planet.
Yeah, so it's a really unconventional team that showcases a lot of characters.
Yeah.
That were not, and Hawkeye is in there as well.
Yeah.
That were not prominently featured. Like Hawkeye wasn't even in the previous movie.
Yeah.
So he gets some love. And of course, like you said, the end, it's just all like rah, rah, do or die. Because what's wonderful about that scene is they've gone to all this effort. And past Thanos, gets wind of their plan. He's like, no way. So you kill me in the future? Guess what, motherfuckers? I'm going to come to you, and all your efforts, you cannot beat me. So I love how they went to all this effort, and
it just blew up in their faces. Yeah,
it didn't blow up in their faces, but at the end, there's a chance like, oh shit, it was all for nothing.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said, your assessment, because I think I would have, if I had a little bit more time to prepare, because I just finished Endgame yesterday, maybe I would have ranked it a little bit higher. Because I agree with you, like every time you watch it, it's a little bit better. And it definitely is better if you do it like I just did with the marathon, because then the emotions kick in, because you remember that first movie. You remember that first Avengers movie too. And one thing that I didn't pick up on, even though it's obvious that that's what they were doing, but how it's an homage to like, listen, this is 10 years. Look, remember that first movie in your son? And but they do it so well that I didn't even think about that until last night when I watched it.
The cast of that movie is like 100 people. Like Robert Redford is in there. And they're not just doing their scenes from the previous movies. Like they actually have different lines and different scenes.
Exactly.
So it's like everyone who has been in an MCU movie almost has a part.
Exactly.
Tilda Swinton's got a part in there with the Hulk when he goes to get the stone.
Oh, which is a cool scene. I love that scene where she knocks the Hulk out of him. Yeah. No, there's a lot of good stuff there. It just hit all the right buttons. It hits and it does that very difficult thing to do, which is hit the nostalgia without it feeling like, it wasn't like No Way Home, where the three Spider-Mans, that was just gratuitous. Like this is like, there was no other way to tell that story. Yeah. Like they had to go to New York and then they fucked up. So they had to go back to the 70s, and who happens to be there? It's Tony's dad. So it's a great wrap up, great way to give an homage to what you've seen for 10 years without it feeling like a greatest hits reel.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Like I probably, if I did this list again, I'd probably put Endgame a little bit higher based on watching it very recently. Guys, my number 3, are you done with Endgame?
Yeah.
Okay. My number 3 is one that I saw on an airplane because there was nothing else to watch. I watched The Sound of Music for the first time. And then I was like, see, I watched The Sound of Music before watching Guardians of the Galaxy. That's how much I did not want to watch this movie because I had zero interest in it. But then I was like, why not? And I enjoyed it a lot. I really enjoyed it. But then this time when I watched it like at home and really like paid attention to a lot of the details, I fell in love with it. Just is what Pete said. Like clearly this is a Star Wars movie, but just a Star Wars movie in the sense of like I really love that and I'm gonna do something totally different, but based on this thing that I love. It's just a cool space adventure with like the crazy cast of characters that would never, you would never imagine them in a room together, but it works. I don't know, guys. There's not much more I want to say about Guardians. Everybody seems to love that movie, and for good reason. It's just the soundtrack, of
Yeah,
course.
it's not even a superhero movie.
It's not. It's just a
It's a
fun romp.
science fiction movie.
Hmm.
It's pure science fiction.
It's a fun romp through space, and I absolutely love it. And I love Groot.
Yeah.
I am Groot. I like bigger Groot more than baby Groot. Baby Groot is cute, but adult Groot is funnier. Oh no, Adolescent Groot is the best other one from the Endgame and Infinity Wars. I like Adolescent Groot. All right, number two.
Number two for me is Civil War.
Oh my god, I don't know why people love this movie, but okay.
I don't think everyone does. A lot of
Yeah.
comic book fans hate it because the
Oh.
story is like 90 issues long or something.
Yeah, it's
like
a long
that.
story. Yeah.
And they compress it and made it very simplistic. But I mean, that wasn't the main angle, so they had to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think what I like, there's two things I really like about Civil War. The first is that because you had this epic comic book story, like, well, what would this be like as a movie? And it's like, you can't make this as a movie. But they managed to make enough of a setup that they could do a movie that was similar to it, a compressed version of the story.
Mm-hmm.
The appeal of it, of course, is all the heroes divided on a different side fighting. But the overall themes of why they were fighting were pretty universal. And that was what made the comic book arc so special. It is about, okay, like how much government oversight should be involved in this type of situation.
Yeah.
And the fact that it comes down to Cap's side and Tony's side totally fits with their personalities.
Exactly.
Cap's like, there's no way that we can, especially after the events of Winter Soldier,
Mm-hmm.
because after what he went through there, where the government's not the good guys, the
Yeah.
government's infiltrated with bad guys, is like, I'm not willing to allow myself to serve a government unquestionably
Mm-hmm.
if they're not in line with my values.
Yeah.
Tony, on the other hand, he's more pragmatic and he's saying, well, fuck, look what we did in Africa,
Mm-hmm.
killed a bunch of people. I don't know, man. Maybe we should be put on a leash.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much an ideological story.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And this is after Age of Ultron too, where that shit
Mhm.
went nuts too. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it's an ideological story where you can see both sides,
course,
which
yeah.
is, the best kind.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has the payoff of, okay, we want to see all the superheroes fucking fighting each other, which we get in the airport battle.
Yeah,
and I
airport
thought that was
battles.
really well done,
Yeah, that's epic. Yeah.
where they paired people off and everything. And then you get the one-on-one battle at the end between...
That's the one, though.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's all the feels, man.
Yeah. And at the end, this is one of the darker movies too, because at the end, it's the feeling of, even though they were never really the best of friends,
Mm-hmm.
they were still, they respected
Yeah,
each
they were
other.
cordial.
And at the end, like, you have a feeling of like a death of a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the death of a friendship, but the death of many friendships.
Yeah, because the Avengers are done. It's like they basically disbanded after that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it reflects a lot of things that happen in real life when people start fighting over politics.
Mhm.
Like, people like get so absorbed in their politics that like friendships are lost over it.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases deservedly, but in some cases it's over like petty shit.
I agree.
In this case, it's over real shit because they got problems and they were all manipulated.
Yeah. No, it's fucked up, and I wish that's the only wish I had for this movie is that they had actually taken that seriously and not made a video game for an hour and 20 minutes, because that's what I feel when I'm watching this movie. It's a video game with all these action scenes and the shaky cam until when it gets to Tony and fucking Captain, then it's like boom. That's the meat of this story. Is these two this ideological difference between these two very strong characters, strong-willed characters, and that's the drama. That's what makes that movie special. If I were rating just the last 30 minutes of this movie, it'd be like top 10. But I just can't get into like all the stuff before, which I imagine you said people that like the comic book that didn't like it probably because of that. Because when I was reading the comic book, I noticed it's way more talky. It's way more, politics inside of little rooms and who's going to do this and who's going to do that. And I think I would have enjoyed that a little bit more. But I think at this time, Marvel was like right in the wheelhouse. They were making so much money and they were like, we got to make stuff that the kids are going to like, And they forgot a little bit about the adults in this movie. Number 2, to finish up, guys, we're almost at the end here. Actually, that was your number.
That was my number 2. So this would be.
This is my number 2. Well, guys, movie that a lot of people love, so no surprise here. I know, except for Pete, which is Thor Ragnarok. But I totally get why he doesn't love it, and he's totally right. The only thing that makes me look past everything that he says is that this movie feels like quote unquote a comic book. Like it just feels like totally fantastical. That I don't think too hard about it. It's like watching cartoon violence, It's like, yeah, like they just level the fucking city in this scene. And I just watched a couple of days ago. I watched Shazam and Superman versus Black Adam, little 30-minute DC short. Awesome. But they fucked the shit out of this city, and you don't think about it. It's just like it's a cartoon, It's like, yeah, they're just fighting each other because that's what superheroes do. They want to they hash it out with punches, and that's how I feel about Ragnarok. It's just the colors, the music, the jokes, there's pop to it. Like Kate Blanchett is in it, and she's fucking hot and evil, and like there's everything just works for me in this movie. And I think for most people, I think a lot of things work for it. But the negative side of that is that unfortunately, every fucking Marvel movie after that decided that it wanted to be the cute, funny, kind of quirky movie. And it's like, no, like I can deal with it every once in a while, but bring me back some of the serious shit from like Winter Soldier, the first Avengers, etc., etc. But I'm just judging it on its own merits. I love this movie. I have fun every time I watch it. I crack up. And it's probably my favorite iteration of the Hulk because it's before they turned him into a pussy, because he was still in like Planet Hulk mode. In Planet Hulk, if you've never read any of those are pretty cool comics. Not all of them, but they're pretty cool comics. So we still had Smash Hulk, Yeah. And when he fights that fucking wolf at the end, oh man, just cool stuff. A lot of cool stuff. And it didn't bitch out. The planet was destroyed, which I loved. I love that they didn't bitch out at the end and say, oh, last minute save, Deus Ex Machina. No, shit got fucked up and they had to all leave the planet. And it gave a little bit more depth to the Thor character, his grief, which is why I get pissed when they're making jokes about Cheese Whiz. Dude's suffering, dude. He lost his whole fucking planet. Anyway, let's go. We are at our number 1 picks, guys. It's come to that. I'm trying to think, Pete. You've said so many movies, and I can't think of which one is your number 1. That's weird. What is your number 1 movie?
My number 1 is Infinity War.
Oh yeah, that's the one you didn't mention.
Yeah,
so far.
Infinity War is actually my top 100 of all time. Probably lower than 50, but definitely bottom half of top 100.
Cool.
But
it is deservedly so. Deservedly so.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a perfect execution of a spectacle, but it also has substance too.
Extreme, yeah.
And it's amazing how they spent so much time working towards just getting to this moment, because you couldn't make this as a standalone movie.
Of course.
It would make no sense. So by this time, we've had 21 movies, 20 movies actually. And Actually, less than that. But anyways, they've spent all this time establishing these characters, building this story, working towards this moment, and it's go from the beginning. Like the beginning is the Asgardian refugee ship from Ragnarok getting attacked by Thanos, killing Heimdall and Loki, kicking the shit out of the Hulk, sending him to Earth. And it's just, there's so much movie in this movie. You know, it's like one scene after another, so many characters, all operating on different agendas, but knowing exactly what their goals are. Um, not not a lot of
This was
forward development, I think, because we know, right? And what the overall theme, of course, is Thanos' reason for wanting to snuff everybody. His idea is simply, yeah, man, the universe got too much people. Half of us has got to go. So there is that philosophical aspect hanging over it. But it's got those great moments like between Thanos and Gamora when he has to sacrifice her. It's got
Gamora to get the
yeah,
Soul Stone. Yes.
yeah.
Man, she must be. She's so stupid in that scene. It's like, couldn't you tell?
Yeah.
It's like, dude said the one thing that you love, and dude's crying. Like, can't you tell? Like, what do you think he could possibly throw in there? But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, the bits with Tony and Peter on the ship heading out to God
Funny
knows where,
shit.
arguing over 80s pop culture. You remember that really old movie Aliens?
Yes, great stuff. Yeah,
so the kids see more movies.
He's seen more movies than I have. Yep.
And the bit where Thor gets his hammer from fucking Tywin Lannister, his axe from Tywin Lannister.
Oh yes,
that was really funny.
I'll tell you, that's the one part of the movie that takes me out of the movie because I love you, Peter Dinklage. You are amazing. You're incredible. I think most people love you, but you have the shittiest British accent ever. Like it felt like me trying to speak British like this. It's like really, really bad. And just like they made him huge. He's like an elf, but he's like, I don't know. And when you watch, next time you watch this movie, just look. It looks like they just paid him to come in like on a different day because he's speaking these lines to Thor, who's like on the other side of something, like out in space. And it looks like he's reading from a teleprompter. He's like, what are you doing? You need more power. Like he's just reading these canned lines. It's weird. I don't know what happened.
But one of them is really funny though. Like Thor is like, he tells him he could die, and Thor is like, well, I will try or I will perish trying. And Dinklage is like, that's what dying means.
That's what, yeah. But even that line, he said it so flat. I don't know what happened with Peter Dinklage, but it felt like they just brought him in last minute. And he's like, yeah, it's a paycheck. Why not? And he was like, I don't even know what the fuck's going on because that's a wacky part of the movie. And the rabbit. I love when he keeps calling Rocket the rabbit.
The rabbit. Yeah. The Guardians.
No. And the best is the him and Quill have the contest.
Yes. You're not a man. That's a man.
Yes. It's like, and he lowers it. You shall not be taking the ship. And they're like, hey, are you lowering your voice? Yes. No, this is how I usually speak. Yeah.
The thing I liked about the comedy in this movie is because it makes you totally unprepared for what's coming. Because it's like, okay, you can joke because we know like the heroes are going to win.
Yes.
The heroes are always going to win.
Yes.
And when they don't, it makes it that much darker.
Exactly. No, Infinity War it just hits all the right buttons. Apparently, Infinity War was the 19th movie, so there was 18 movies before it.
I kept that.
Yeah, Black Panther was the movie before Infinity War, and then you got Ant-Man, and then Captain Marvel, and then Endgame. My number one movie, guys, we're on the Avengers train here. It's the original Avengers, and it's basically it's a good movie. It's a solid movie, but it's the feels. Like this one is totally subjective. It's just the feels, man. And I say this as a hardcore DC fan who had wanted to see the Justice League on screen his whole life. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll just have to deal with the Avengers instead. But those fucking Avengers were awesome. In that scene, I still get goosebumps every time when it does that the camera like spins around them, and they're all
Yeah.
standing there, and Black Widow's got a Glock. Like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
gonna save the universe.
Yeah.
But it was just this build up, and of course it was maybe 4 movies. Actually, I got the list here. So how many movies before Avengers?
5.
5 movies. So it was still early in the fact that they managed to get that out. 2008 was Iron Man. 2012 was the Avengers. And they managed to put enough out there in that phase 1 to make Avengers actually make sense and to make it feel like the event that it was is incredible. And it was like, I so wish that DC was able to do that, because a Justice League movie like that would have been perfect. But I'm like, whatever. I'll be a sellout to Marvel because, I'm not a hater. If the shit's good, I'm watching it. In Avengers, it's just a moment in time. I remember being in the theater and just like, fucking shit. It's that feeling, Pete, because Pete's like a little bit older than me, but we more or less grew up with similar cultural references. And I think people from our generation, that was our dream of like actually seeing this shit, like look like it looks in the comics, look like it looks in the cartoon. And this was the first time that I saw a superhero movie. And I was like, oh shit, that's how he's really supposed to fly. That's how the Hulk is really supposed to be. And I will never not love the Avengers movie. They may come out with movies that are better written, better, like Infinity War, for example, but it's totally an emotional pick for me. Of Avengers, the first one, as the top movie. Just something different, something that we had never seen before, and probably will never be repeated again. I doubt it. I very much doubt it. Very quick before we go, guys, that was the last one. So very quick before we go, I would say, look, top characters for top superhero characters. For me, I'm a big Captain American fan. Really dig what they did with his character. Number 2 for me, maybe that's tough. The Hulk. Okay. Before they fucked him up, before he got too soft, up to Ragnarok, Hulk, was a secondary character. And then third, my top 3, that's a tough one, man. That is a tough one. I don't know. As far as the heroes, I'll get back to you on my number 3. Who are your top 3 heroes?
Yeah, my top 3 are pretty easy because they are the big 3, but the order matters. Mm-hmm. Largely because I have been reading Iron Man and Thor from the beginning. Uh-huh. Thor, I'm in 1966. Iron Man, I think I'm on 1991. I think I like Iron Man as a character because of how he was conceived in the comics as basically being Howard Hughes, but without the weird OCD thing. Alcoholism replaces OCD. Yeah. But Robert Downey Jr. represented him perfectly. He's a genius. He's an egomaniac. He's a misogynist. He basically represents most things that the political left hate. But he's also, at heart, a genuinely good person. He's kind of like Elon Musk in a way.
No, he's very much. Actually, Elon Musk has a cameo, I think, in Iron Man 2 or 3. There's a cameo with Elon Musk. Yeah.
He has a character cameo in Machete Kills, too.
Oh, cool. I love that movie.
Yeah. But basically, like, he's the guy that the entire world hates solely for the fact that he's rich and arrogant, but he saves the world. Oh, nice.
Yeah, in Iron Man 2.
So that's what I like about Iron Man. He's like, you're privileged, you're a billionaire, you're wealthy, blah, blah, blah. But why is he?
Proof that Tony Stark has a heart.
Yes.
Yeah, in the end, you see that he's got a heart.
Yes, which is ironic because his heart gets fucked up.
Of course, yeah.
And my number 2 would be Thor, because he's Thor. I don't think so. I mean, there's not much more you can say about it. He's like the ultimate expression of manhood. And my 3rd would be Captain America, which is surprising because I'm not a huge fan of him in the comic books. I like the Wolverine types.
Yeah.
They're
more interesting. Yeah, they're more interesting.
Yeah, they're morally ambiguous. Cap is not morally ambiguous.
Of course, yeah.
He knows what's right. He knows what's wrong.
Mhm.
But at the same time, there's something that's so endearing about that goodness that I think Chris Evans is largely responsible for.
For sure.
He brought that out. Like, he is the good guy.
When he gives that speech before they do their first time jump,
Yes,
it's
yes.
so great. It's
Everything is on the line. Some of us might not be coming back.
It's perfect. And then Rocket,
And he's a leader too. He's a natural leader.
which is cool that Tony Stark takes a step back.
Yeah.
And he lets him, like, he's the leader of the Avengers, like, I'll take the step back, and he gives that and it's such a great scene because as he's talking, Tony's looking at him and you can see, like, oh, I want to punch this dude, but I want to hug him at the same time. Like, you get this look that Tony Stark gives him, that he's the total opposite. He's a foil for Iron Man, but at the same time, it's like he can't help but not love this man because he knows he's on the right side. Speaking of that scene, I think I remembered who my third one is, and it's Rocket. I fucking love Rocket.
Rocket's pretty cool.
Yeah, because Rocket is the one that says, damn, he's pretty good at that. He's pretty good at giving those damn pep talks. So, guys, that's it. That's our Marvel journey. I don't know if we'll ever do another Marvel one unless Marvel figures out what the hell they want to do with their cinematic universe. But it's definitely, last thoughts here. This was something special that I doubt we will ever see again. 22 fucking films over 10 years, right? Or was it exactly 10 years?
Yeah.
That it's just it's a what do you call it, like a time capsule. I don't think we will ever see anything like this again. So thank you for listening. I should have said it at the beginning, but like and subscribe, and we'll be back with some Kubrick very soon. I just gotta figure out where I put all my fucking notes for Kubrick. And that's it. Any last words, Pete?
No, just again, thanks for listening. These movies were a pleasure. Hope you enjoyed most of them as much as we did, and we'll see you another time.
I might torture Pete and have us do a DCU marathon. It's shorter, at least.
Yes, it is.
It's about 10 movies, 11. So maybe we'll do that at some point. All right, folks. Love you. Until next time. Bye-bye. All right, that was